Hey, Joe, how are you?
How are you? It's like we want to say Happy New Year. It seems like it's been so long. It's an occasion.
You know, I don't trust turning this on airplane that it's not gonna do something. With my fire
March of 21, right? March of 21?
Okay, Frank, you're on a roll. Where do I find settings on this thing? I gotta add this. I gotta add this.
Any place,
Anywhere. Sit anywhere.
Just grab your name and find a spot. I go into phone and just type it in.
Wait, you go
I
into,
just go into my.
and then type in
browser,
what?
Type in the whole spiel, that whole thing. That's what I did. I didn't bring that to
one
me.
other person. I don't know who that other person, mystery person is yet. It's probably Tom.
Probably.
He's zooming in.
No, I think that we.
Beach Haven, what would it be? .gov? I'm gonna say. Not connected, it's running. It's not easy, especially the one with the storm. So let's keep it going. C I
That was my.
beach.
Oh, yeah.
You're in, aren't you?
What is it again? Beach Haven.
I just got it on.
I'm like,
Yeah, he was trying to get.
I'm trying to get me, because I'm not in the Beach Haven AJ, because I haven't taken that thing, so they gotta send me to my first.
I was just thinking,
So how do I,
the last time we were in here, I was way with Morrison.
where?
I think it was, where's my name tag? Do I have
That?
one? I guess I don't have one.
Maybe in the mix of those to the right a little bit.
That
Keep
one?
checking.
I don't have a name tag.
No. You want mine? Oh, here we go. Oh, there it is.
Oh, I just, I love it too.
Perfect. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks for all of your attention. Thanks for all the attention on my house.
It's so weird, isn't it?
Weird to see each
other in person. Usually you're.
Yeah, I know that big. Good for you, girl.
Can you imagine if we couldn't do Zoom meetings for this two years? I had to catch up.
I could pass you the gavel too, but. Well, you know, I have my thing next to me. I know I'm gonna. I know, I have stuff. I hate it. Oh, no. I get a couple appetizers, the food only. Yeah, it's a lot, it's a big group. It's my whole family, which is nice. Egg out of, nah, it's gonna be hairy. It's fun when it's full, you know.
Mine's like 2 days old.
What is that? I'm not gonna use that.
Is that what it is?
We can't do that.
Wait. Liz is laughing. I know. Rick and Karen are on too. I don't know. There's 20 people on.
I have no sound.
Are you having trouble hearing us?
Yes.
Okay, you are? Okay, I'm gonna get off the phone now. You're
Okay.
unmuted. Just stay unmuted.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you hear me now, Jim?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Do you approve the minutes from October 3rd? Jim?
Yeah.
All right, answer loudly, Jim.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Meta,
Yes.
Mrs. Ball Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins. And that's it. Okay.
Well, we can still do our ministerial stuff.
Mr. Stevens, can you, do you approve 2022? Mr. Stevens, do you approve the resolution 2022-14?
We just talked to him.
But they can't, I don't know if they can hear us. That's the problem. They
Yeah.
can't hear us.
That's the. Yeah,
I try.
Just call him and let the phone be.
How can he approve or disapprove anything?
That's your technology, Jim. Not great with this stuff.
Can you hear us?
Please stand by. What do we get, Jim?
Yes, that's.
We need 6 votes, and we don't have 6 votes.
I don't think I could vote even because I recused myself from this.
There's you, Jared. You're on.
Hello? No, it sounded like it's from my computer.
Does it sound like that on there?
Test, test.
That's not it.
Much better.
Can you turn off all these lights?
Well, no, then it can't be
You
recorded.
just press that to turn your mic on.
We have less megapixels.
A bunch of those on.
You need it for the transcription.
Yeah, as long as she can pick up.
We have every other megapixel, all of that.
Push the button and hold it.
Hold it.
Yeah.
When you let go, it's still.
Mine's not turned on.
Mike's not turned off.
Test, test.
Can you hear us? Hear us? Yeah.
Testing, testing. Anyone in Zoom land hear us?
Oh, someone's giving a thumbs up.
Thumbs up, thumbs
Face
down.
person.
Thumbs
Okay,
up.
yay, okay.
Jim Stevens, can you hear us? Jim Stevens cannot hear us.
Maybe that's Jim, maybe not just Jim. but the other people can hear us. All Jim Stevens. Okay. I don't hear it.
We can hear him.
Can you hear us? Jim,
Yes,
There he is.
can you hear us?
I started hearing you just a little bit. There's a lot of, it sounds like a mic is interfering with another mic. It's,
No, we're having a tough time here. Yeah. Oh, good, you can hear. And I think I can hear you now. say something.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes.
And the back, the static has stopped,
Yeah, the static.
but it's, see, okay.
All right. There you go. Thank you.
Without any further ado.
Yes. We're going to switch some applications around tonight. We're going to do application 2022-17. And I understand that this is an application seeks a sidewalk waiver for irregular lot in the RSA single family residential district. And I understand that Joe Pisano is going to speak to this. This one isn't on, this is price with this one. So you don't need to know. This one.
Everybody just speak up. Just ask everybody to speak up.
Good evening, James Raven on behalf of the applicant 1900 Virginia LLC. Can everyone hear me on Zoom?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, it's a sidewalk waiver, pre-marked exhibits that went to Mr. Raven earlier. A1's the development application waiver for sidewalk. It's dated 11/14. A2 is a survey from Warren Tyson and Mueller, James Ramsey. He's here tonight. It's dated September 16th, 22. A3 is Jeffrey King Architects, dated 11/17/21. A4 are the notices, everything's in order. And B1 is Frank Mills letter, 23 to deeming this application complete. The sidewalk waiver there, there's no variances to this application.
Thank you. This subject property is located at 1900 Virginia Avenue. It's in the Webster Lagoon area. I know we've had a number of applications in this area, and as recently as a couple of months ago on Leeward Avenue. But this one is very unique in that it's an irregularly shaped lot, and it also sits at the end of the cul-de-sac of Virginia Avenue. So there are a number, at least 3 other waivers that have been approved on the street. And at the end of the cul-de-sac, we have the applicant here that's just in the process of completing substantial renovations to the house, which triggers the curb and sidewalk requirement. The applicant's willing to install the curbing, but with the sidewalk, if they were to install it, there's a house under construction next door, and then 2 doors down, one that was recently completed, and there was a waiver granted with respect to that property. I don't believe for the board, but it might have had to do with a fire hydrant. But basically, this would be the only house on the street and at the end of this cul-de-sac. And as I stated, it's an irregularly shaped lot. It's on an arc along the street. So you would just have sidewalk along an arc at the end of the street, which really just doesn't make sense. It wouldn't even be able to be utilized. I do have some photographs I'd like to introduce. Mr. Shin, I guess I'll mark these. I have 3 separate exhibits. We'll mark as exhibit A5, a series of 4 photographs, which I'll have the applicant authenticate. Okay, and these I'll just pass around. Then, so that's exhibit A5, which is a series of 4 photographs. Then A6 will be a series, a sheet with 2 photographs, and A7 will be an aerial photograph. And these I will just pass around.
Mr. Raven, while you're doing that, I'm going to swear Mr. Little, just to get that out of the way for you, Frank. You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give to the truth?
as I stated, I'm gonna have the applicant authenticate these, but with respect to Exhibit A5, which is the series of 4 photographs, the top left photograph represents the applicant's property. The top right photograph shows the property immediately adjacent to the applicant's property. The bottom left photograph shows 2 houses away on the cul-de-sac, and then the bottom right photograph shows looking toward the street from the cul-de-sac. So the bottom left photograph, that house, I'm not sure the exact address, but that's 2 lots away from the applicant's property. That house was built in the last couple of years since the sidewalk ordinance was put into effect. They received a waiver because there's no sidewalks on that property. The house in between the applicant's property and the bottom left photograph is still under construction, so I don't know if they are going to be coming in for a waiver application or not. They have very little street frontage. Actually, I don't even know if they have frontage that would warrant a side. Their only frontage may be the driveway itself. I'm not 100% sure. But if you then look to the A6, which is the 2 photographs, these both represent photos of the applicant's property. There's fencing up because of the construction, but there's some vegetation that you can see behind the fence. And that's right adjacent to where the sidewalk would go. And the applicant's pretty confident that a lot of that vegetation would have to be removed. They would lose that and have to be uprooted as a result of putting in the sidewalk. And that's landscaping that's been there for a substantial period of time. And actually, why don't I call Rebecca Trotta at this point?
You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give you the truth?
Yes.
And your name and address, please.
My name is Rebecca Trotta. It's REBECCA TROTTA.
And Ms. Trotta, the applicant here is 1900 Virginia LLC, and you're a member of that LLC that's authorized to speak on behalf of the LLC?
Yes, that's correct.
And so far, we've marked 2 exhibits, A5 and A6, that are a total of 6 photographs. Do those photographs accurately represent the current condition of the property and surrounding properties?
Yes.
And before Mrs. Trotta gets into her testimony, I guess we'll just also mark as Exhibit A7, the aerial photograph. And this one I took off of Google just today, but it's clear on here that it's not up to date. The 2 houses, so the applicant's property is at the end of Virginia Ave, at the top left corner of Virginia Ave, heading to the bay. That is this property up here. That's the applicant's property. So these 2 properties, one was, yeah, this one's developed, right, and this one's in the process of being constructed. So the reason for this exhibit is just to show Virginia Ave as a whole. This is not a well-traveled area. Leeward is definitely more traveled than Virginia Avenue. There's been waivers granted with respect to the property on the corner of Virginia and Leeward, the property next door to that, and this one over here, which is 1903, and that's the one that was recently constructed. So it's really almost just an awkward place for the applicant to put in sidewalk here, because as I said, it's an arc that fronts on along the cul-de-sac. So that's the main basis for the request, but I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca Trotta to discuss as well.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to come and present to you this evening. I want to start off by saying that I deeply respect the
purpose of ordinances and policies and such. I actually am a director of nursing at the Hospital of the University of Pennsylvania, and I am charged with upholding policies and things that your board is dealing with right now. But actually, last week, as Jim and I were speaking about this and what I might say to you, I was actually reflecting on an experience that I had in my own line of work, which is where we have a policy around visitation for our patients. And we often have to consider special circumstances or unique considerations. And the policies exist so that we have something to point to that shows that we understand that we have a guideline to follow. But we often have to consider, as I said, unique situations, given the fact that we cover a very wide geography, lots of different types of populations, et cetera. And I was reflecting that this is actually a similar type of situation where I understand that you have a guideline and a rule in place, but that for this unique situation, it actually might require a consideration, and that's why we're all here this evening. So I just wanted to offer that reflection and let you know how much I appreciate consideration. Couple of reasons, as Jim already stated, why we're asking for this, and I have a couple of points in mind. And one of them is I understand the purpose of usually having obviously sidewalks so pedestrians can walk safely in a heavily trafficked or highly trafficked area, so folks can walk, people can drive, they're safe from each other, and all is well. And as Jim mentioned, in this cul-de-sac, we really don't have high foot traffic, and we also don't have high car traffic. So in this instance, it's really not practically needed. The second is that, I always do have to say, I always throw in my nursing background. I am maybe a little bit of a safety geek at times. But, I feel some non-contiguous sidewalks, I think actually sometimes impose a little bit of a risk in terms of having to get onto it and then walk on it for a short distance and then get off of it. That sometimes defeats the purpose. It can actually potentially be less safe if you're thinking about folks with, I work in geriatrics personally, folks who might not have sure footing or might have a stroller or things to that effect. If it were in place, it's very unlikely that it would be even utilized for those reasons. And having it, actually, one of the photos that you don't see here is if you're looking at our property to the left is a well-established home. And really, as Jim mentioned, every home on the entire street doesn't have any sidewalks. So the home immediately to the left is a well-established home, which is 1910 Virginia Avenue, and they don't have a sidewalk. So it would have to be there. Yeah, that would be, if you're looking at the picture, this one here. The kind of next point I wanted to make is that we did remove a considerable amount of impervious coverage from this property. If you can see this aerial photo, and I think you have this in your exhibits, but the entire front of the house was actually all pavers, and it had two accesses to the driveway. And so we eliminated a substantial amount of pavers. I brought I didn't think your copy had highlight, but if you want to see this, I'll go like this since I only have one, but this where the yellow highlight is the entire area of pavers that were removed. And so practically speaking, adding more coverage back in where the use would be pretty much not at all probably, doesn't make practical sense as Jim mentioned. And then the final point is that we do have a beautiful shrubbery, well-established, a beautiful holly tree, another very unique type of Japanese maple in the front that would have to be removed in order for the sidewalk to be put into place. And then the final point is that, as you know, the house at 1920, I guess the technical address might be Newark, but it also faces Virginia, came before you some months ago to ask for this very same consideration and was granted. And then the home directly across from us, does everyone have the Everyone has this? So this big open lot now, the bottom part of it has a home on it. And that, which is in your, what exhibit is this? In A5 on the bottom left, you can see that new home is the one that now occupies this lot. And as I understand it, they did not come before you, but they do not have a sidewalk. So I guess in conclusion, we have a couple of points that we feel are potentially quite valid to ask for your consideration of a waiver in this special unique circumstance. That's what I have for you.
Thank you. How long have you owned the property?
We've owned the property since February of 2021.
Okay, thank you. Just in case there's questions.
Okay.
Is there any questions from the board?
Anybody have questions?
I have a problem making sure that we put sidewalks in all the time. However, again, this is the third time in this area, I walk this property right. I don't see it, I hate to sound competitive, but it's the same as the other properties. This one in particular, it's sticky, it's gonna be the only one on that cul-de-sac, it's gonna look odd. And I don't think that it's gonna add.
This microphone's on.
My mic's off.
Turn it off.
Yes, my point is, I agree with the applicant and Jim, that in this case, I don't understand the benefit of putting in this little section in the whole area that's nothing. And probably won't. Maybe the only place we're not gonna go.
I don't understand why the new house across the street doesn't have a sidewalk.
I think it's stated.
It is.
No.
No.
Don't hold it down, that's when you mute it. Is it pink?
This one's Joe and what, this All right, how's that look?
There you go.
All right, so the lots at the very end of the cul-de-sac, this is 2-lot subdivision. And this board gave a waiver for sidewalk under that subdivision application. And that's why those 2 homes at the end of the cul-de-sac don't have sidewalk, but they did come before the board when Dr. Fatah owned the property and got a 2-lot subdivision with a sidewalk waiver attached.
They have curb, Frank.
Yes. There's curb, but no sidewalk.
Curb is present.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Muha. I think the curb is important, especially if you're putting any type of crushed stone or whatnot that gets, into the storm sewer. So I agree with the no sidewalk, but I agree with the curb.
There's also a fire hydrant across the street. That would be there too, so, in that house that was built.
It does have.
All right, any more comments? Pretty much agreement on this. The other? Can you hear?
It's working,
Yeah,
it's working.
So don't press
I
it.
don't press it.
But it's working.
Yeah, we can hear
Working?
it. Yeah, it works good.
All right, and then you have a motion to deny or approve this application.
I don't think it was open to the public.
Yes, there is. Okay, can I have a motion to open it to the public?
I so move, Penny.
Second, Tom.
All right, anybody in the public, if you have a comment on this application, please raise your hand and Jeannie will unmute you. I have a motion to close it to the public.
Motion to close.
Thank you.
Second.
Now, can I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the sidewalk waiver.
Second, Jerry.
Thank you. Okay.
Mrs. Baxter, can you hear me?
I think she did. Asked Mrs. Baxter, can I get a vote, please?
She's not even showing up.
Mr. Meadow?
So I'm a opponent of the sidewalk waiver myself, but in that situation, I think it is warranted to grant the.
Mrs. Ball Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mrs. Eddles?
Yes.
Mr. Muha?
Yes.
Mrs. Leonard?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Jenna?
Yes.
Application approved.
Thank you very much.
Good luck to you.
Thank you all very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, moving along, we have application now, 2023-09 Tuckers. The applicant seeks a C variance to add a 20-foot buffer for plants in required areas and a 10-foot planted buffer in other areas. This site will lack the required 20-foot buffer in certain areas, therefore requiring a variance. A variance is also required for the proposed impervious coverage of 84.2%. Maximum impervious lot coverage, it says it's 75, isn't it 60? Yeah.
There's 60.
The existing impervious lot coverage is 94.9, with proposed addition of sidewalks, 48 seats, while relocating the outdoor seating previously approved outdoor seating. She recused herself, and so does Nicole.
So real quickly, Frank's already been sworn in. Mr. Grass is going to be here for.
Yes.
For him in a minute. This is a continuation. This was started back in May, continued in July. Exhibits were previously marked at the July meeting. The May meeting ended up being void. So the July meeting, A1 was marked as an application. A2 was the revised site plan. A3 was the east side dining. Frank's letter of June 28th, 22 was marked as B1. There's new exhibits. At that meeting, the board approved the use variance. The board, there was testimony that the applicant would be taking tables and chairs from inside the restaurant, taking them outside, but not increasing the number of tables and chairs, so there was no intense, no change in use other than just relocating it. As part of the board's decision to grant the use variance, there was some consideration that was made with respect to a new site plan. Part of that was for sidewalks along West Ave and a new buffer on the east side of the property. So the applicant was asked to come back in September with new plans. They asked to have that postponed until November. November meeting was canceled. So we're here tonight, December, and there's a few new exhibits here for this December 5th, 2022 meeting. A4, continue where we left off, is the letter from Jim Raven, dated October 26th, 2022, explaining this application. A5 is Mr. Grasky's revised site plan, October 24th, 2022. And then B2 is Frank Little's letter, another review letter of October 27th, 2022. So if you're going to ask questions or testify, just make sure you're doing on the new documents. The application tonight is just really the site plan variance.
Thank you. James Raven on behalf of the applicant, Tucker's Real Estate LLC. As Mrs. Lenhard noted, there were revisions to the prior plan. The last time the applicant was before the board, there was less of a buffer proposed on the easterly side adjacent to the proposed patio. So the applicant is still proposing the approximately 16-foot by 56-foot patio area on the east side of the property. And the prior parking spaces that were in that area are going to be removed. On that easterly side, the applicant is now proposing the full 20-foot buffer that's required under the ordinance. And then as you get down on the plan, along the southerly property line on the east side, it gets down to 15 feet and then down to 10 feet where along the southerly line there adjacent to the building. So Mr. Brzezowski is going to get into a little more detail about that. But the variances that we're seeking now are really just with respect to those two areas of the buffer that are 10 feet and 15 feet. One other thing I wanted to clarify in the notice that I sent out. So the last time we were before the board in July, there was testimony from Pete Palladino on behalf of the applicant that the overall number of seats was not going to be increasing, that this new patio, the seats were going to be pulled from the inside of the restaurant to go onto the patio. We had revised that in the notice to say that the new patio area was going to be additional seats in addition to the interior. We're now taking it back to as originally proposed. There's going to be no overall increase in the number of seats of the restaurant. Besides the outdoor seating ordinance seats are separate from all of this, but the overall number of seats, putting aside the outdoor seating ordinance, is not going to change. The 48 additional seats will be pulled from the inside of the restaurant. So the overall number of the seats is not going to increase. So I just wanted to clarify that so there's no confusion, because my notice said otherwise, but we're going back to what we originally proposed. The only other modification I'd like to state is there's testimony last time on the record that there were only going to be umbrellas proposed on that patio, which is still the plan for now, but the applicant also wants the ability to put an awning there at some point in the future. So that's the only other revision to the application, is the ability to put an awning in the future. And at this point, I'll call Jim Brzezowski.
Excuse me. I always miss the July meetings. Should I not listen to this?
Well, you can listen, but it'd be better if you didn't.
No, I'm gonna.
Do you swear or affirm to testify about the truth?
Yes, I do. James Brzezowski, I'm a licensed professional engineer, and professional planner in the state of New Jersey, and an employee at Horn Tyson and Yoder, whose address is 8510 Long Beach Boulevard, Long Beach Township, New Jersey. Thanks. Yeah, that's, can we get the right site by that? We're going to about that one after this application.
Sidewalks. I forget. It's been so many revisions on this. I forget what was on and what wasn't.
Got it.
So, Mr. Brzezowski, we've marked as Exhibit A5 a revised site plan that was submitted since the July meeting. Is that correct?
Yes.
And if you could go over with the board what the changes were that were made to the site plan from the previous hearing.
Certainly, yeah, I took notes on July 6th meeting. So the board required a 6-foot tall solid fence along the easterly and southerly lot lines. So the site plan has been revised to show a 6-foot solid fence along the easterly and southerly lot lines up the easterly extent of the parking area.
Speaking of that, Mike, so you think-
Is it on?
Is this on?
Yeah,
Yes.
That's better.
you just gotta get close.
Move the cardboard dumpsters out of that easterly area. So the cardboard dumpsters, recycling dumpsters were moved to the southern area behind the existing building. They're between the building and the shed. A shed located on lot 11 to the south. This seems like a reach over there, is it?
No.
Create a sidewalk along the westerly side of the property. Yeah. All right, the recycling dumpster. Solid fence along here and up to here. Recycling dumpster, sidewalk along West Avenue. We're relabeling a couple of the affected parking spots to be compact car only. That was a suggestion by Mr. Stevens. Increase the buffer to 15 foot, which would reduce the loading zone to 14 foot. If you recall, we had a loading zone in the easterly area. Instead of making a 15-foot wide buffer, we made a 20-foot wide buffer, which complies with the ordinance. So the buffer has been increased on the east side to comply with the ordinance. We also created a 15-foot buffer along the south side, which reduces to 10 foot behind the building. So the buffer areas have been increased along the east side and the south side. We adjusted the landscape, we adjusted the plantings in the buffer area accordingly. We removed the blacktop from basically all this area and behind the building to reduce the impervious coverage. So now the impervious coverage, I can't read that.
How much of that laptop did you use? I know it's gone behind, but what about on the side?
We're removing all of it on the side. Yeah, the only, so we've got landscape buffer for 20 feet. Then between the landscape buffer and the raised patio area is going to be crushed shells. So yeah, there's no more pavement in any of this area. No more loading zone there. That whole area is going to be shut off. Yeah, so the impervious coverage is being reduced from 94.9% to 84.2%. 60% is the maximum permitted, but we are reducing it by a little over 10%.
Mr. Brzezowski, people will still have the ability to walk around the building.
Yeah,
Correct?
yeah, there's going to be 5 feet between the building and the landscape buffer, so we're leaving a 5-foot walking area around the building.
Not able to get a fire truck in there?
The east side, no.
You have a loading zone which would accommodate a fire truck. If so needed.
Yes,
So now it's no.
now it's no. It's a balance. We're in order to.
Also a fireman, so that's why I got
Okay.
What is that area now?
There's
Shells.
I have that.
Yeah, it's the loading zone is about 10 foot. 9 or 10 feet. The we really wanted to, we're trying hard to reduce the impervious coverage. So in order for there to be a loading zone, we're going to leave pavement there. If we're reducing impervious, we're getting rid of the loading zone. Plus, we're complying with the 20-foot buffer to the east, which seemed to be a major concern.
It's a lot.
It's 109 on that side.
That's a lot of hose. Yeah, I mean, it could be done. It's a lot of work.
I know there was discussion about this point at the last meeting. I thought that the board had came to the conclusion that even if there was space there, the fire truck wouldn't likely be in that area,
Not
but
gonna, so the fire truck's not gonna be able to drive around the back part between the southern side, but it certainly could back all the way up to where the new foliage is up against the south side.
we're certainly willing to work with the board as far as the buffered area there. Previously, we had 12 feet. We've now increased it to 20. If there's a middle ground that would allow for a fire truck, we're certainly open to that. So
you're saying they could reduce it 3 feet and then the fire truck would get in?
Yeah, at least that, I mean, they could always throw the tables out of the way.
Isn't the tape gonna be on that?
Well, according to this, there's 16 seats there, right?
There's a
yeah,
patio
they
there.
did put tables in that area, but like you said, that could easily be moved.
So there's patio sitting, there are tables sitting in shells, right? Is that what my
Yes. Right now, it's a 9.2 foot wide area, so the applicant would be willing to increase that to however wide is necessary for a fire truck. So we were previously at 17.2 feet, now we're at 9.2.
So you'd have to take away from the buffer
Correct.
and the landscaping, get a couple more feet into that in order to make that area big enough for a fire truck.
Yes.
Is there an issue with taking away the buffer?
Not for me.
I'm just thinking.
I think it's important, like, towns that be able to get safety.
Right. I know we were trying to buffer it for the neighbors and.
So I would reduce the buffer. So they have enough that they can get.
Tom, this is Jim Stevens.
Yeah, I mean, I don't recall, we've done a lot of these land use applications. You know, if that building catches on fire, they're not gonna take a fire truck and park it next to a burning building that close and be trapped between that and the next house. So typically, you're gonna fight the fire from the road, you're gonna put the fire truck in the road. You're not gonna burn a $10 million piece of fire.
So you don't
I'd
think it's
be, I'd
necessary.
really be surprised if the fire department would pull the fire truck down a tight spot, even if we backed the buffer off and made it a 15-foot drive.
Shall I have the fire chief come up with public comment?
I'm sorry, what?
I'll have the fire chief come up with public comment.
Yeah, I would be surprised if we pull a fire truck. Yes.
That close.
Well, so how far is the patio that's there? That's patio's 15 feet, right? 20 feet, 16 feet.
Yeah,
So by the time you park there, I mean, depending on where the fire is, the kitchen is interior of the building. You know what I mean? There's a good distance. I just think we don't want to hinder ourselves more than.
Right, it's up, yeah, I just want to.
That does make sense.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, if we had another option, but if we had to take the easiest route
The
first.
problem is that we change the direction too quickly. So, citing the fire truck up here, it's gonna become playing with the truck. And then you gotta reset the truck. Like flaps.
Is it,
I'm not a fire truck.
is it possible to reduce the width of the buffer to 15 and leave an open area that's not considered a loading zone? That would just be left open.
For the God forbid scenario.
Yeah, like, so the applicant could use that area to put the tables in that, no? These, on the current site plan, we are showing tables on the lower area. Those tables are part of that, that ordinance that allows you to put tables that are inside, outside, or we've actually, there are some existing tables in the sidewalk area along Ingleside that he wanted to move into that other area because it's a little better area to put. No. Yeah, the 48 seats are on the raised patio area. That's that's correct. And when we started this whole application, this area we thought was going to comply with an ordinance that permitted tables to be brought outside. And we didn't need land use approval for this. It came to light that because we were creating a patio area that we did need land use approval for this, for those 48 seats on that raised patio area. Those 16 seats that are just east of that area are at grade. They would basically comply with that ordinance because we didn't change the grade or change the surface of that area.
Outside, didn't go onto 16 seats. Is that right? So you were approved for 70 seats outside? Without original ordinance, you're saying?
Yes. That would be the areas up in here and all along Ingleside, all those tables along Ingleside. Yeah. That would, to the best of my knowledge, yes, all those seats out along Ingleside are.
So before you put those 4 seats, these 4 tables on shelves, where were they?
They're showing
Yeah.
the plan is.
Yeah, they're in this area on the sidewalk, and they're indicated on the site plan as to be relocated to the eastern area.
And you're adding 16 over here.
Yes.
Where's the other 4? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You got 4 seats over here, 4 seats, you have 16 seats over here.
Yes. That it would comply with it would have to comply with whatever the ordinance permits is what we would be putting in the. I don't know what was permitted.
Mike, raise your hand.
Hello,
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give should be the truth?
I do.
And name and address.
Pete Palladino, 53 Lafayette, and then Alton. So I do have the application that we presented for that outside seating application.
Make sure you speak right into the mic.
I'm sorry. So the application that I gave to Beeching when we filled it out initially, took into consideration these 48 seats, because at that time, we were under the impression that we could do that. So the numbers that we were approved
The
for were
48 seats that you're asking for tonight,
correct,
that were inside from outside.
correct. So
That
we
was
got
your
approvals
original
for them.
application from the town.
Correct. We got approvals for them, never could use them because all of a sudden this triggered land use approvals. So we just didn't use them. So,
So how many seats did you put outside?
so I want to say we had 352 inside. At the, what we got approved for was 228 inside. So we put like 100 and something outside, but that included that 48.
So what's the total number of seats that are working?
Yeah, so Pete,
140.
how many seats were utilized outdoors this summer pursuant to the outdoor seating ordinance? Do you have that number?
That was, I want to say, it was like 40, like 56 seats. Somewhere in there.
Okay,
And that was along all along, those seats were all along Hillside Avenue. So what we're proposing is keeping the four tops that are shown on the right-hand side, on the right-hand side of the plan, where there's kind of a patio, no, up, there you go, those guys. And then taking the two top seats that we had along Ingleside and just relocating them after this crushed shell surfaces there.
So you're moving them away from the front area to the side.
Correct, yes.
And how are you going to service those? If you've got a 2-foot deck plus a 2-foot fence, 4 feet. So
There
how
would
are you gonna
be,
get
there would
down
be
there?
stairs coming down from the raised area. We would build stairs coming down on.
Where are those stairs going to be? They're not on the plan.
Don't know.
Are they?
Inset into the patio.
What?
It would have to be inset into the patio.
Inset into the patio, which takes away table space.
There's enough room for one.
Yeah, they've got a planner there.
I mean, I think that would be very difficult servicing.
So the borough ordinance permits what percentage of the inside seats are outside? Is it- if I remember.
They didn't have a set percentage.
They didn't.
They didn't. So if you had, you know, you were gonna put 100 seats outside, you would be taking.
So I guess they need to get something.
How long does that permit last? Is that indefinite? that you can do that?
I
You
want
have
to say
do
you
it
apply
every-
for it yearly.
You have to do it every year?
Correct.
and so Mr. Palladino, the seats, if we're not taking into account for now the 16 by 56 patio that we're proposing, all the other outdoor seats will be on that side of the building will be pursuant to the outdoor seating ordinance, correct?
Correct.
And then this patio area does not fall under the outdoor seating ordinance because the grade was changed. So now we're just asking permission from the board to be able to utilize these 48 seats, which will also come from inside. Is that correct?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
So you will just then apply for the outdoor seats again. Do you have to apply every year?
We do, yes.
Okay, so then you'll just apply next year, and then as long as where we're showing them on this plan falls within that ordinance, that'll be permitted. Those seats will have to comply with the outdoor seating ordinance.
Correct.
Okay,
To us, that was just, would be a nicer area to put seats than along the front of the building. in front of them.
right. So those other seats are going to comply with the outdoor seating ordinance. We were just showing them on the plan to give an idea of the board that that was a possibility. Rather than the sidewalk, I think people would rather eat next to the new landscape buffer than on the sidewalk.
Right.
So, but those, really, for the only seats the board are approving are the patio seats. The other seats are under the ordinance.
Except for the servicing of the four ones that are now in the shell, crushed shell area.
Well, that would also fall under the outdoor
Servicing
seating
them,
ordinance.
getting to them.
We
Stairs.
serviced The front area, if you walk out Tucker's to the right on that little patio where we had seats, we service that this year as well through the front door.
To the front door.
And through, there's a side door that is on the side of the building, going out into that raised bed area as well.
And then how do they get from the raised patio down?
It's only a step.
They can
like,
step down.
yeah.
Yeah, takes the buffer down again. Just so everybody else is, I just spoke with the fire chief. He's actually in a meeting up in Point Pleasant. He said that 18-foot would be optimal for them to get a truck in there so that they can service, get compartments open, get equipment off it. And as far as Frank goes, being that we wouldn't pull a truck in there, if the fire was back, say where the trailer was, we would absolutely, rather than stretch lines, it'd be easier to get back in that corner in the back half of the building. We try to get the easiest route possible, preferably without cutting ourselves off, but I could see his point.
Can you roll a fire truck across crushed shells, the crushed shell surface?
Yeah, I don't think that's a problem. I would think that's a problem.
So we want to widen to 18 feet.
It's 9.2 now, so it'd almost be double, and then that would put the buffer at only like, what, 10 feet?
12 feet.
Right, the last time we came in, a 12-foot buffer, the width was 17.2. So now it would be, so the buffer would go down to 11.2. We were trying to increase it from last time, but now it would be a little less.
It'd be a lot less, because we have to look at.
Yeah, it's definitely happening.
And I believe at the last meeting, I think there wasn't a concern with the fire truck not going there, but I understand where you're coming from.
Because it was a loading zone.
Right.
Because if you can unload stuff off either side of your beer trucks and whatnot, then you could unload fire trucks. I mean, 17 foot would probably, I mean, it could work, certainly. And I just asked him what he would think optimally.
So if we left it at the 12 previously proposed, would 17.2 be enough, do you think, or you want that minimum 18?
Well, I can ask him, he's the fire chief. Don't mind, I'm sorry.
Sure. Then I guess we can continue to discuss any other issues.
So what was it when it was a loading zone? How wide?
It was 17 too, you said, right?
There was no buffer, so.
Well, there were parking spaces.
Yeah, you could pull cars in there, so chances are, if cars parked in there, probably wasn't enough room to pull a fire truck down in the car. Based on the angle of space. Some of the fire. Now the opportunity to fix it.
Yeah.
And obviously, there's not going to be a living zone, there's not going to be parking. So it feels that the fire situation is obviously. Buffer down the fence. And you'll still get a double row of plantings and 6-foot high fence. I think the residents, they kind of wanted a line of buffer because of the noise.
Well, I mean, with that being said, if we have the buffer not being so wide, but if they agree to keep the tables and seating as if the buffer was that wide, without having a line of demarcation, so to speak.
The question is, are there stored tables that are in there? You said they're on the patio, so if it was fire, you could throw them out.
Yeah.
So, you can run them over if you want.
Yeah.
Chair Lenhard.
Fire safety is the concern. You drop the buffer down to 10 to 11 feet. If there is, they come up with fire. Just make it all clear.
Chair.
Any other comments from the board members? How do you feel about this?
I feel okay about it, but I don't know about the neighbors. Are they gonna be concerned? They're not getting the bigger buffer. If we take the buffer away, so we can have the 18 feet.
But
or
like Frank said, there's still gonna be
17
two
feet.
rows of trees,
Yeah.
right?
Is this something that gets open to the public? for
Yes.
discussion?
Yes, we are after. Any other comments from the board?
Well, my question, I asked a question. We're still gonna have a 6-foot fence, are we still gonna have 2 rows of trees like Mr. Hawk testified back in July, or is there still be room for 1 row of trees?
Two rows of trees. 10 feet. 10 feet. We can put 2 rows of trees. All right, can I have a moment? I think that's, Lloyd, open it to the public. Do you have any other comments?
I don't believe so.
Well, have any discussion on the, one of the things we wanted you to do was give us testimony on the side.
Oh, that's correct, right. The sidewalk on West Avenue and Amber Street? Okay. Mr. Brzezowski, did you touch on that yet, that we're adding the sidewalks?
Yeah, I did mention that we're, yeah. Yes.
Losing any parking spaces? I know you said they were gonna reduce the size.
Yeah, we're not losing any, we're reducing the size of 3 parking spaces, and we're gonna indicate that they're compact parking only.
Or maybe golf carts.
Yeah, maybe golf carts.
Parking spaces wouldn't be all again.
Altogether, there are 33 parking spaces. There's 26 required, including if we include the 900 square foot of the raised patio, 26 would be required. There's currently 40 parking spaces on site. We're reducing this, eliminating the 7 parking spaces on the east side of the building, brings us down to the 33 provided on this plan.
Mr. Brzezowski, I know we covered the variance proofs with respect to the special reasons variance at the last meeting. We'll do that again with respect to the C variances. So we're asking for variances regarding the correct?
Yes.
And if you could just comment with respect to positive and negative criteria on the.
You were reducing actually, we're creating a buffer where one doesn't exist currently. So we're creating a 10 to 12 foot wide buffer along the east side. We would like to, we have the potential to create a buffer that complies with the ordinance on the east side. However, we think it's best to leave it at 10 to 12 foot to allow for a fire truck to access that area on the east side. On the south side, we've got a 15-foot wide buffer in the easterly side yard area, and it reduces down to 10 foot behind the existing building. So we're creating buffers that currently aren't there. We're also providing a 6 foot wide, 6 foot tall solid fence to further help screening to the residential properties to the east and south. So, you know, we think that what we're doing is a benefit. We're also reducing the impervious by over 10%.
You feel that these variances could be granted without substantial detriment to the public good?
Yes, I do.
And do you feel that the granting of these variances would impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance?
No, I don't. I think they are moving this property closer to the intent of the zoning plan.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, I have questions for the witness. This is Janine Bauer. I represent the next door neighbors, Drew and Molly Fallon.
Do you want to wait till we open it to the public, please?
All right.
Jerry?
So back in July, we talked about in this new area that there was going to be a 6 foot high fence. The old fence was going to be taken down and a new fence. Is that still the plan? Yes.
Any other questions from the board? Not, I'm going to open it to the public. Can I have a motion to open it to the public, please?
I so move. Penny.
Second, Tom.
Janine Bauer, please state your name and address.
Unmute yourself.
Thank you. My name is Bauer. I'm an attorney with Schaeferman Lakeland in Lawrenceville, New Jersey, and I represent Molly and Drew Fallon, who are the adjacent property owners on Ingleside on the east side. My first question, and this actually all my questions relate to the buffer and the outdoor seating, to which my clients object strenuously, with the
Sorry to
exception of
interrupt you.
the outdoor
Can you state
seating
your
that's
full
allowed under
address?
the outdoor seating ordinance. But the 48 new seats, first of all, does your
Ms.
site plan
Bauer,
have
Bauer.
a seating,
Hello?
a seating plan so we can see how many tables are left inside, as well as the 48 seats outside plus the 16 that are going to be down on the shell area? Has that been presented in the site plan?
I need you did not get sworn in.
Well, no, she's an attorney.
Oh, is that all right?
Yeah, she's an attorney. She's an officer. Swear attorneys. And she won't be testifying. She says.
Ms. Bauer, just so I can have it right in my notes, so your clients live at lot 3, that part of that condominium?
Yeah, they're at
Okay.
the immediate it's actually shown on the site plan that was up on the I forget whether it was A2 or not, but the building, it says 2-story building, and there's just like a little bit of the building that's represented right next to where the tree line is proposed.
Okay, directly to the east, you said, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble hearing you, so if you could just speak into the microphone a little bit more, that would be appreciated.
Sure, and I apologize. I believe the board chairwoman was trying to ask you a question as you were asking your question. So if you wouldn't mind just repeating your question. I know it was lengthy, so I apologize, but I heard most of it. You're looking to see if there was a seating plan for the entire restaurant. Is that right?
The indoor and outdoor, because I understood from the beginning of this meeting, and of course I've read the minutes and so forth, that at this point you're going back to the original so that the 48 seats are coming out of the interior of the restaurant. And I'm just asking, first of all, have you presented the seating plan for both inside and outside as part of your plan set there tonight? In other words, what sheet is it if it's there, and if it's not there, can you let us know that?
No, we did not submit an interior seating plan with the application. But I can certainly have the applicant testify regarding the number of interior seats.
Okay, I think he did that in the sense of, I thought there were 353 or 352 rather. I might have misunderstood that, and that the 48 are coming out of that. Is that correct?
Yes.
So how many tables are left? I don't want to make assumptions. How many tables are left in the interior under your proposal to the board tonight, not including the 48 seats, 60, I think it was 12 on the deck portion, and which makes 48.
Hi there. So on this application, this is, again, was the application that I filed last year. So we have 352 seats inside. Interesting point. There's not necessarily, in going back and forth with each of them, there's not any fixed number. They pulled out floor plans that had 670 from back in 1972 or something. Before we had it, I found plans that had it at 370. So we just happen to have 352 in the current set, right? So the way that the outside ordinance works is it is an arbitrary number. If I decide to take 100 seats from inside, put them outside, if I can fit 100 seats out there, great, we'll reduce inside. If I don't, if I only can take 50, then we would do that. The way that it worked last year, I was taking a bunch of seats outside, left us with 228 total. So once we see what our approvals look like, we take a look, we will certainly have the 48 seats. Up on that, we will certainly go to have the 48 seats. We will certainly go to keep the front patio and walk out the front door at Tucker's, the little patio area. We'll certainly keep that. The seats that are along the crushed stone, we just have 16 on our plans. Again, let's see what we can accomplish to make everybody happy as far as fire trucks. So this is all on file at the borough, by the way. Every year you can take a look at that signature.
Well, when you say arbitrary, do you mean to say that there may be more than 48 seats on the outdoor deck?
I don't believe that we can fit more than 48, but the way that the ordinance reads, we can, as long as we can take them from inside, and we're taking them inside and putting them outside, there's not really a fixed number or fixed limit on that.
With respect to this application, Ms. Bauer, the 48 seats on the patio are not part of the outdoor seating ordinance, so we're proposing it would be no more than 48 seats on the patio. Couldn't be more than 48.
Okay, and is that a representation that there won't be more than 48?
On the patio area.
Yeah,
I
think that we can fit more than 48, honestly.
Okay, and is there a corollary representation that the interior will be depopulated by 48 seats?
Correct. On the application, it is noted, and again, the numbers that I gave, Beach Haven last year included these 48 seats in what I was reducing from inside. Again, we could never use those 48 seats.
And just so the record's clear, Mr. Palladino, when you just referred to the application, you were talking about the outdoor seating application, not this site plan application?
So yes.
Okay.
Correct, the outside seating application.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm confused about that. The outdoor seating application, as long as the grade isn't changed, that's not what's before the board tonight. Isn't that correct?
Correct. The raised patio is not part of the outdoor seating application because the grading was changed in that area, so therefore the outdoor seating ordinance does not apply. So that's why the applicant has to come before the board for those approved seats. So the patio in question, the 16 by 56 patio, we're proposing 48 seats there. So the applicant would not be permitted to pull more than 48 seats onto the patio. It's a maximum of 48 seats. Then any other outdoor seating would fall under the outdoor seating ordinance.
Right, okay. I'm just trying to get to, I'm a little surprised if the board doesn't require a seating plan so you can see what's indoors and what's outdoors, because it's great to have the representation that the 48 seats on the outdoors are coming from the indoors, but without, seeing the total seating plan, it's unclear how this isn't, a greatly intensified use. And because that use is now on the east side and affecting my clients, I would like to see that overall seating plan. In other words, the interior and the exterior. And by the exterior, I don't mean the outdoor seating area where the grade wasn't changed. I just mean the 48 plus what's inside. Is that something your client's willing to do?
Well, the applicant, Mr. Palladino, what was your representation as to what the total number of interior seats is?
352, that just is inside.
So, I suppose we could provide a plan, but as far as the number of seats, Mr. Palladino is testifying to what that number is, how it's laid out inside. I don't know how that matters with respect to the number of seats we're pulling outside.
Well, it's just, I would like to test it, that's all. With respect to the fire truck, if you were to move to 15, 16, 17 feet, it would be just as easy to reduce the size of the outdoor patio as it would be to reduce the amount of foliage that's creating the buffer that's now 20 feet. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, I believe the outdoor, the raised patio area is immediately to the south of a currently raised wall. Anything to the east of the raised wall is in line with the depressed curb. So to reduce the patio area as opposed to reducing the landscape buffer, it's not apples to apples. It would be a little bit more work involved in reducing the patio area than would be allowing the loading zone to be where the opposite where the existing depressed curb is.
But it could be done, correct?
Anything can be done.
And when you say you're adding a buffer that didn't used to exist, the buffer that did used to exist had cars parked on it, but there wasn't outdoor seating, and the noise and you light and so on and so forth. I don't know if there's going to be music associated with outdoor seating, and therefore the cars parked on the surface was an adequate buffer because there wasn't any outdoor activity. Correct?
Other than cars and getting in and out of cars. Is that not an outdoor activity?
Well, you pull in your car, you turn it off, you slam the door, and then you go eat, and then an hour later you come back and you pull out. So that's an outdoor activity. Would you consider that less intense than 48 diners plus another 16 diners chattering away the entire time?
I guess that is debatable. I live pretty close to a restaurant parking area, and you hear the car alarms, the car doors, people talking. There's loud noises in a parking lot.
And there are loud noises with outdoor dining, right?
There are people talking in an outdoor dining area. So I would
Do you
say
know whether there's going to be music in the outdoor area?
I do not. There was testimony at the prior hearing that there would be piped music as similar to what was inside the restaurant. It would not be a loud decibel. It would comply with the noise ordinance.
Was there testimony as to the actual decibel level?
No, there wasn't.
Can you, Mr. Brzezowski, perhaps could you say what the exact distance is between the house that my clients own that's represented as that two-story structure to the lot line where the trees will be put?
You want to know the distance between the property line and the house?
Can you estimate that?
It's 6.3 feet.
And these are what, like arborvitae or something like that?
We've got some eastern red cedars, some London plane trees. So the eastern red cedars are a nice evergreen buffer tree.
Is it your contention that the London planes actually provide any kind of noise attenuation like a fir tree might?
I'm not contending that the London plane trees do anything except is it create a screening buffer.
Mm-hmm. And do you need an additional variance to reduce the buffer to 15 feet or 12 feet that you testified you might consider to accommodate a fire truck? In other words, a bulk variance for that side yard setback buffer?
The required buffer is 20 feet, which is what we proposed on the plan for tonight's hearing. And to accommodate the fire truck, that would have to be reduced. So a variance is required for the width of the buffer. Yes, or 20 feet is required.
So you would have to come back for that variance?
No, that would be requested tonight based upon the comments of the board that the board would prefer to have a wider area to accommodate an emergency vehicle. So, in the notice, there was a statement in there that any variances suggested by the board would be requested at the hearing. So that just came up tonight as a suggestion from the board.
Okay, but you agree that you could take it off of the outdoor seating as well?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
You agree that you could take that extra space off of the outdoor seating as well? And by outdoor, I mean the deck seating.
No, not fully, no.
I don't understand.
No, not fully. That you take 10 feet out of that patio area to create a 20-foot drive aisle, or even 9 feet out of that 16-foot deck. You'll have 7 foot of raised patio, which is not adequate for the outdoor seating. It doesn't fulfill the purpose of that raised patio area.
That might be so, but you'd be serving the other two purposes, that is the fire truck lane and the 20-foot buffer.
But at that point, we would need an application because we're not getting the patio area that we're here tonight for. So if we're not going to have a patio area, we're not going to put in a buffer. We're going to leave 7 parking spaces and a drive aisle. We're also not going to reduce the impervious coverage. We're not going to put in a sidewalk on West Avenue. So there's a lot of good coming out of this application.
This doesn't have anything to do with the sidewalk, right?
It's all part of the site plan. It's all or nothing.
Well, you're not suggesting it's an all or nothing deal. You get the 16 by 56 or take the ball and go home?
If you're suggesting we cut a foot or two off the 16, then, maybe that's reasonable, but to take 9 feet off of the 16 and leave us with 7, it doesn't make sense for the applicant to continue.
Well, that's the applicant's choice.
Yes, it is.
I don't have any further questions on this particular point, Madam Chair.
Thank you. April? Would you like to make a public comment?
Hi, my name is April Myers. I live at 525.
April?
Yes.
On your video so we can see you.
Oh. Is it on?
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, ma'am, raise your right hand. Ready? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give should be the truth?
Yes.
And your name and address?
April Myers, 525 Amber Street, Unit B.
Thank you.
So I was on the last time. I objected to the outdoor seating and I still object to the outdoor seating just because it's in my backyard and I keep hearing that there's a benefit, and I just don't see where this stops. And I feel like at some point, Tucker's has a lot of outdoor seating, and I live there. I see all summer long, people were eating in the front. It was a beautiful setup. I don't understand. Are you giving up that section too, or is this in addition to? The area that you had in front of Tucker's, that you had the outdoor seating, that people sat in all summer long, I did as well. Are you giving that up, or is this in addition to the patio seating?
The patio seating is in addition to the other outdoor seating.
Okay, so I object. And the reason why is I just feel like you have the upper patio, you have the side, you have the in the front now, and now you want on the side of the building as well. I just want to say to the board, I want to ask, like, when is enough where the residents have value here and that we are heard? And you know, the residents who are on Angleside right next to them, I mean, this is really going to affect their quality of life. It affects our quality of life. And when I moved there, it was a parking lot. It was not a dining room. And I would ask the board to strongly consider not granting the application. I think that Tucker's has been given enough of outdoor seating, and like, when does it end is really what I object to. I think now you're lessening the buffers. I was perfectly happy with the parking lot. That's like really all I have to say. I would just really ask that you say enough. I mean, why do they get the outdoor seating and they have a variance for more outdoor seating? I don't understand why.
Thank you, April.
Liz Gravier.
Hi, I am from 543B Angleside.
Liz, raise your hand. You have to be sworn in. Your name and address.
543B Angleside Avenue, right across the street.
And do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give should be the truth?
I do. So I just have to go along with April and Janine and the Fallons that I do object to this, though I'm entire couple of months down there. Parking is atrocious. I mean, that's just the whole island, but the parking is, I drive down and I can't even park in front of my own condo complex because there's Tucker's employees getting out of their cars and walking across the street. They're just continuing, like April said, enough is enough. When are they going to stop? Just adding on and adding on and adding on. Next year, we might be back here with their back parking lot, getting back into like another beer garden again. But there's just so many people, and there's the noise, and there's the garbage blowing all over. My mom lives on Angleside too. She's 541. She had a young 20-year-old wander into her condo at 11:30 at night and fall asleep on her couch. And if you look on her ring doorbell, he came from Tucker's, and he was drunk. He walked into her house at 11 o'clock and sat down on her couch. She called the police and so on. But you know what? It's just, you're attracting people. You're attracting all. It's just not going to be positive in the end. So I just disagree. I think it's not good for for our little area, and it's just very overpopulated, and nothing good's going to come out of it. Maybe not for us as residents. For you, Tucker's making money, sure, but not for us.
Thank you, Liz. Everybody in the audience have a comment?
further along.
Can I have a motion to close to the public, please?
Motion to close.
Second,
Second.
All right.
Madam Chair. Through a text message chain back and forth with the fire chief. The reason why he said that the code is 18 feet is because of our ladder truck, if we should have to get a ladder truck in there because of the outriggers.
Okay.
He doesn't know if that's completely necessary to get a truck in there. If I were the fire chief, I would want some kind of buffer, something so we could pull a truck in just in case. And unfortunately now I lost contact with him. I just wanted to throw that out there so that everybody's informed. I'm not just doing what my wishes are. So he's not saying that it's absolutely necessary.
Thank you. Any other comments? from the board?
Yeah, this Jim Stevens. I have a question for Frank. What's your experience on the normal width of a fire lane?
I couldn't hear you, Jim. You meant something about a fire lane?
What's the normal width of a fire lane?
I think minimum is 15 feet.
15 feet.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, that's the width of a loading space also for a tractor trailer.
Okay.
So can I make another comment? I mean, I know we're hearing from the neighbors and, you know, the 48 seats on the east side are what they're asking for. You know, if the board was to approve that, they don't necessarily have to approve another.
To go eventually.
Well, I don't
They
know
have
if
to
it'll
do
ever
this.
go away.
Well, I know, but you have to apply for it each year.
I understand that, but if because of what they're asking for, you could stipulate as far as approval, if they can't have any seating other than the 48 seats on the raised patio
Right.
on the east side of the building. Because now you're introducing another 16 seats on
Right.
the ground, potentially because of the outdoor seating. And they need variance, so you can stipulate other conditions if you decide to approve. If you don't decide to approve it, then you just have 7 cars parked there. It is what it is. But all of a sudden, we have 48 seats, now we got another 16 seats, and now we're reducing the buffer, you know, for a potential fire lane. And there's a lot going on the east side.
And I guess we just need to establish too what the minimum buffer, minimum width would be for the fire truck that the board would be willing to accept, because the applicant would obviously like to provide as much of a buffer as the board would permit. So is 15, 18, or I guess I just want to establish that number.
Well, like, as Frank said, you don't want to commit a fire truck if the place is fully involved and you don't want to get it stuck in there. So I'm looking at the westerly parking lot. We can get the ladder where the highest part of the building is. 15 feet is a normal fire lane.
That's a loading zone too.
So that'd be probably more than adequate to get just an engine in there, not the ladder.
Okay.
Which is actually $2 million piece of apparatus.
Right, not 10 million.
So my next question is, if you're making it 15-foot,
Right.
then could it be a loading zone too? Or they don't need it? They don't
Well,
want
it could be, if you want it to be both.
I mean, if you're making it, you know, they were trying to come in and do the maximum of 20 feet, but now this whole fire issue has come up.
Was it a loading zone before on that side?
Yes, and the neighbors complained
Well, then why? allow
About the
them to load?
noise of the loading zone. So they got rid of the loading zone. They got a 20-foot buffer.
Well, then I wouldn't permit it if you if you're going to approve it, I wouldn't permit it to be used as anything other than it's an emergency, it's a clamshell area that has to stay open in the event there's a fire
Is that what they
concern.
say about fire lanes? They have to remain open?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, then, can you make it a fire lane?
Well, you can't have a truck, let's say your truck is unloading in there and there's a fire, the truck can't get out, how's the fire truck get?
Right. So
So if
that's
you're
what
gonna
I'm
do
saying.
something here, it's.
Can
one
you
or the
make
other.
it a fire lane? So, period.
Period. Just
And
a
at one
15
point,
foot
they
clamshell
talked
area.
about putting a chain across that, remember?
That's okay.
Oh.
we have time.
Bonnie,
Yeah. People from pulling in. Yes,
Bonnie,
Jim.
this is Jim
Yes.
Stevens. Why can't we do the 20-foot buffer, but that portion that requires the 15 feet just be a cleared area with no plantings? He can't put tables in that area because there's a 20-foot buffer, but we'll still have the 20-foot, buffer, quote unquote, and he can have his tables on the remainder.
There's not enough land up there, Jim.
Well, what you're gonna have is you're gonna have, say, a 15-foot planted buffer, and then you're gonna have a 15-foot clamshell area that can't be used for anything.
Right.
So
Correct.
technically, it's not planted, but there's almost 30 feet then from the property line to the 48 feet. Because we're not gonna allow them to use it for a loading zone or anything else, so there won't be any activity.
So that's a lot, 30 feet is a lot.
Yeah, with 15 foot of it
And
planted.
when they talk about noise and everything, I think that's a lot.
If you do a 15 foot or, 14, whatever you need to get that 15 foot in there, whatever that difference ends up, if it's 14 feet or 14 and a half feet, then you're planting, you might get a triple row tree.
Yeah. That's good to me. Anybody else have any comments? Okay. I need a motion.
Motion to approve, considering all of the issues we've discussed about the fire lane, the buffer, and the seating on the east side, as Frank mentioned, that we limit it to 48 seats. And
So we're recommending,
48 seats, eliminating the 4 tables.
right, with no additional tables on the east side.
you're recommending a 15-foot buffer.
Yes.
A 15-foot fire lane
Mhm.
and 48 seats on the porch,
Right,
on the east side.
on the east side.
Whatever the math works.
I believe with a 15-foot wide fire lane, the buffer would end up being 14.2 feet. So,
Close enough.
Close enough.
And with those changes, we're recommending a variance. The variance is being granted as amended during this hearing tonight, and the site will be approved.
I need a second.
I just have one question
Yeah,
about
me
the
too.
buffer. The
Yeah.
fencing, is it vinyl white fencing and it's all the,
yeah, a 6-foot tall vinyl fence.
okay, and it's white,
So,
solid white?
And just also, we had requested the ability to put an awning up as well. Just wanted to make sure that was okay as well, over that patio area.
I don't have a problem.
No. And then the trees will be adjusted according to more if we can fit them in there, I guess.
Correct. The applicant, I suppose, would maximize the amount of plantings you can fit within a 14.2 area. Well, I don't know if that's the right way to say it.
yeah, I mean, it is certainly in our best interest to create a buffer. We want to make it nice out there. You're going to be sitting out there eating. So in talks with Dan Hoke, who's our landscaper, these things that he's putting in there are nice trees that are going to expand. So, if we have 14 feet, let's just say, he's going to try to stagger things so that it is going to create just a nice wall of greenery for all the neighbors, as well as for our diners.
Right, okay.
So I have a question for Frank. If we modify or state in the approval that it's 48 seats, it's no more, no less, in perpetuity.
Yeah, regardless of the seating plan that you can get from the borough under the under yearly permit. Nothing can go on each side. And unless they come back to this board to seek another approval, that's what's going to happen.
And that's just for easterly side, right? It doesn't limit anything on Engel side.
But you can't block the 50
Right.
foot potential emergency
Right.
lane by putting tables out. on Angle.
If no other questions, I'll second the motion.
Who's second?
I'll second it if there's no other question.
Let's go to vote. Mr. Meadow,
Yes.
Mr. Stevens,
Yes.
Mr. Fasano,
Yes.
Mrs. Eddles,
Yes.
Mrs. Leonard,
Yes.
and Mr. Jenna.
Yes.
Application approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
I strongly feel like this board does not care about the residents, and I really wish at some point you with the people that live here.
I agree with you. It's ridiculous.
Application 2022-18. The applicant seeks a special illusions B variance to construct a 56-foot by 24-foot, one-story building to the existing east parking lot of the property. The proposed building will contain 4 separate bedrooms with separate entrances and a private bathroom for each bedroom. There are no kitchens proposed in this building. The building has a proposed height of 28.8 feet. 25 parking spaces are proposed instead of the 33 required. 2 loading zone spaces are proposed, while 4 are required. 89.4% of the impervious coverage is proposed, 90.5 is existing. Maximum impervious according to the ordinance is 60%.
Bonnie,
Yes.
this is Jim
Oh,
Stevens.
Jim is going to recuse himself from this application.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
So let me just, there's 6 members eligible to vote.
Yes, I understand that.
5 and a 7. You only have 6, so you get 5 votes. Okay, so I'm not sure we're all clear on that. If you don't mind, I'll go through the exhibits.
Sure.
Application 22, this is the Buckaroo's JC Beach Restaurant. A1 is the application dated November 14th, 22. A2 is the Horn Tyson and Yoder survey, James Massey, revised November 10th, 2022. A3 is Lara Lambert Architect. It's 1 page with housing plan. A4, the notices, they're all in order. And B1 is Frank's letter, November 28th, 22. Prior resolutions, 1996-06, 2018-05, I handled that before. So there's a couple prior resolutions on this property, nothing specific to this application. So.
Thank you. James Raven on behalf of the applicant, JC Beach Haven Restaurant LLC. So the purpose of this application is to address the employee housing problem that businesses in town are beginning to experience. This is for Buckaloo's and Station 117 restaurant. It's all falls under the same site. It was most recently before the board in 2018 for the approval of the Station 117 restaurant. So what the applicant's proposing here, when I originally spoke to Mr. Kramer, who's the principal who's going to speak on behalf of the LLC, the idea was to try to put housing above the existing Buckaloo's, but it really just wasn't feasible structurally And the alternative that they came up with was to propose this building in the parking lot area. And it's a one-story building, but it's raised. And as Mrs. Lenhart stated, there's 4 rooms proposed. There's no kitchen, so they're basically similar to, they're just basically boarding rooms. They're similar to what's above Buckaloo's now. Right now, there's 6 existing rooms above Buckaloo's that were previously approved with the prior site plan applications, and there's no kitchen in any of those rooms. So it's not a dwelling unit under the ordinance, and that's where the board is classifying this as a special reasons variance. It's questionable whether or not that's the case, because it really doesn't fall neatly into any of the categories. I don't know if it's a second dwelling unit because there's no kitchen, but just wanted to note that for purposes of the record. But there's 4 rooms, each one has a bathroom, and the applicant is proposing to put the building 5 feet off the rear property line. That's how it was proposed. I did speak to a couple of the neighbors who abut the parking lot, and there were concerns about windows on that northerly side of the building looking into the adjoining properties. So what the applicant has decided, they're willing to increase that setback on the northerly side from 5 feet to 10 feet. That does result in losing 1 more parking space, but the hope is to alleviate the concerns of the neighbor, step that back 5 more feet. If this were a residence, the required setback would be an 8-foot rear yard. So the applicant's proposing 10 feet now, which is a little more than a residence would be, and it's only 1 story. There's just not a lot of light in these rooms, so losing the windows was a difficult proposition. So they would like to leave windows, have some light in these units, but pull it back 5 feet. So, we'll hear from the public. I haven't discussed that revision with them, but that's what the applicant decided would be a good trade-off. Lose 1 additional space, but give them some more of a buffer on that north side. And Mr. Brzezowski is going to testify regarding the variances. I also have Jay Kramer on behalf of the applicant. And first, I'll start with Mr. Brzezowski.
So the public's aware, you can see right now, sworn in earlier and accepted by the board as an expert witness. So I don't need to swear him in again. And Mr. Little was also sworn in earlier, so I'm not going to bother swearing him in.
Mr. Brzezowski, marked as Exhibit A2, the site plan that you prepared. Would you go over that with the board and explain what's changing at the site with respect to this application and what the variances are that are required?
Sure, this is the Buckaloo's Station 117 property. Is located bound on the south by Center Street, bound on the north by 2nd Avenue. And it has frontage on Long Beach Boulevard. The property has an area of over 31,000 square feet. It is the area to the east of the Buckaloo's restaurant that this site plan primarily focuses on. That area is roughly 90 by 110 foot deep, where we're proposing to construct a 56 by 24 foot wide, a 1-story building to house employees of the restaurants. The construction of the building is in a existing parking area. On the site plan, it shows that we're going to be reducing the parking area, the number of parking spaces by 7, with Mr. Raven's modification that the building be set back 10 feet off of the north property line. That'll actually reduce the number of parking spaces by 8. So we're proposing 24 total parking spaces on site for these 2 buildings, where 33 parking spaces total is required. We're seeking a variance for 9 parking spaces. The building, there is existing on-street parking along Second Street, Long Beach Boulevard, and Center Street. The additional variances required are for loading zones. 4 are required between the 2 restaurants, and 2 loading zones are provided. 1 loading zone in the parking area on the east side of Buckaloo's, and 1 loading zone in the parking area in the northeast corner of Station 117. There's no modification to the commercial uses, so there should be no modification to the amount of loading or unloading required at the site. The loading zone variance had previously been granted, so we're just seeking that variance be re-granted, as there's no change to the commercial use of the property. The proposal is simply to provide housing for employees of the restaurants, which is something that we're finding to be in great demand, not only in Beach Haven, but all up and down the island, not just housing for employees, but finding employees.
And so, Mr. Brzezowski, with respect to the special reasons variance, can you comment on positive criteria? What purposes of the municipal land use law might be advanced with this application?
I believe that this is kind of enhances the general welfare of the community, in that it's providing housing for employees to work at the restaurant, which benefits basically the general community. Furthermore, we're creating a density of population density in an area that's needed. These employees are needed at Buckaloo's. We're creating housing for the employees at this site.
And if these additional housing units were above Buckaloo's, a special reasons variance would not be required, correct? It's just the fact that it's in a separate building?
Yeah, to my understanding, a mixed-use building would be permitted in the business district. It's just for the matter that this is in a separate building that the special reasons variance is triggered.
And you feel that an approval would have substantial detriment to the public good?
I don't believe it would have a substantial detriment to the public good. It's the building is set back off of Center Street. Almost 80 feet off of Center Street. Well, it would be 75 feet if we move it 5 feet closer. So it's set back off of Center Street. It's 1-story building. It's at 56 by 24. It's not a tremendously large building.
And being that the use is permitted in this zone, do you feel that the proposed housing would impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance?
No, I don't. Actually, as we get further east, getting into the residential areas more, we're kind of buffering the restaurant from the residential with this residential building. So in a sense, it kind of creates a buffer or eases a transition into the residential portion of Center Street.
I'm going to have Mr. Kramer testify a little more about this, but what's your understanding with respect to the parking that will be utilized by the occupants of this new structure?
Yeah, my understanding is that the occupants are being brought in from overseas, and they're not bringing cars with them. So I don't believe there's a parking demand for the occupants of these units.
Okay.
So we're offsetting the parking we're taking up by having residents in these buildings that don't use cars, that don't have cars.
And other than this proposed building, what, if anything, is changing with respect to the site otherwise?
it's the proposed building, there's really not much changing there. There's a fence that extends between the existing parking and Buckaloo's. That portion of that fence will come down. There's a couple trees in the area where the building is going that will have to be removed. But other than that, the only modification is the new building. And the new building is located directly east of the area behind Buckaloo's that is used for trash. So all the trash from the new building will go to the trash area, which is used by both Station 117 and Buckaloo's currently. So refuse won't be an issue.
And I'm going to mark one photograph as Exhibit A5. And Mr. Brzezowski, if you could describe for the board what this photograph depicts, please.
Yeah, this appears to be looking in a northeasterly direction across the existing parking lot, where we can see a single car parked at the most northeastern parking space. Right side of the picture, we can see some sort of a 6-foot stockade fence with some vegetation, some large trees, and on the center of the picture to the left, which would be the north side of the parking lot, we see about a 4 to 5 foot fence with another foot of open lattice above it, and some also vegetation on the north side of that fence.
So it looks like there's a bit of a buffer there with respect to the trees on the neighboring properties.
Those trees would be on the neighboring property, and do create somewhat of a screen for the neighbors to this property.
Okay. And we're requesting variances with respect to the required planted buffers abutting a residential neighborhood?
Yes, we are. The proposed building is to be 5 feet off the east property line. The east property line currently has about a 3.5 foot planted buffer. These trees on the right side are on the Buckaloo's side of the fence. So those trees are actually on the Buckaloo's property. The area to the north of the building, we're now increasing to 5 to 10 feet between the building and the fence. I suppose we could put a row of plants in there at this point to create somewhat of a buffer.
Okay.
But with the existing fence and the buffer or the trees on the north side of the fence,
Yeah,
I don't know how much need for.
yeah, I guess we'll talk to Mr. Kramer about whether there's a need to have that area open. And I believe you already testified to this, so the existing trash location will also be used to accommodate this new building as well?
Yes.
And you feel that area is adequate to handle that?
Yes.
Okay.
That trash area currently handles the trash for 2 restaurants. 4 1-bedroom units isn't going to add substantial trash to that trash area.
Mr. Little, did you have a particular area that was a concern with respect to the curb and sidewalk?
I think we just put a general.
Okay,
Everything across the avenue.
right.
I believe there is a note on the plan that says anything below standard is.
Okay.
I think everything.
And there's a note, Mr. Brzezowski, in Mr. Little's letter regarding water and sewer. Do you know how the proposed building is going to have access to water and sewer? Can that be added to the plan?
Yeah, we'll show that on the plan. It's gonna come off the Center Street.
And what about lighting?
We weren't proposing any additional lighting. There'll be some security lighting on the building. It'll probably actually help light up the parking lot a little bit. But nothing regular building mounted, that's like 60 watts.
So you don't anticipate any light interfering with use of the neighboring properties?
No.
Okay. Okay, I think those are all the questions I have for Mr. Brzezowski.
Is this open to us now? Can we have? I do. What is the occupancy of these bedrooms? Oh, that would be up to.
Yeah, it's my understanding that the intent is to have 12 people total in the whole building. I think it'll vary with respect to how many per room, but 12 total in the 4 rooms. And Mr. Our air conditioning units, is that going underneath? Why don't you come on up, Laura?
You swear or affirm testimony about this is true?
Yes.
And your name?
Laura Lomer, 1917 North Central Avenue, Surf City. Lomer.
And Mrs. Lomer, you prepared the architectural drawings that were submitted with the application, is that right?
Yes.
And there was just a question with respect to the location of the air conditioner. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, we were looking at where the.
Oh,
Yes, yes.
Was that when you came?
2019, 2018.
I don't remember, I don't handle the application, but. Station 117.
Station 117.
We accepted you as an expert then?
yes. And you've testified before other boards as well, Ms. Lomer. Okay.
It's been a while. I remembered you.
Sure, and I jumped the gun on that. I apologize. So yeah, if you could just comment with respect to the air conditioning condensers.
Right, where the windows are on the north side of the building, there's a window in each bedroom. In the back, we were thinking of doing the wall units, an individual wall unit, kind of like you see in a hotel. So there's just a, yeah,
They go in.
Yeah.
Above a window and then go out.
well, no, actually, this is the kind that's more in a hotel that's all in one unit. So on the outside, it just looks like a flush grate on the exterior of the building, and then you have the unit inside, and then you can heat and cool
So-
from that.
Side of the building, would that be on?
Back of it.
Is that little thing under the windows in the drawing?
Yes.
What's the pool ordinance buffer for mechanicals? I know we're not talking about a pool, but the heating units are going to generate noise. And we're doing a 10-foot buffer, you said?
Well, they're proposing to shift the building 10 foot. The rear yard setback on past.
Okay, so I couldn't remember what the mechanicals were.
Pretty sure they need the accessory building setback.
My question is, why you didn't go up another floor of the original apartments? I mean, there's no, in the site plan that I got for Buckley's, you don't know anything about the second floor of Buckley's. I know you have rooms up there now. I don't know I don't know how many rooms, I don't know how many uses bedrooms, I don't know how big the bedrooms are. But I don't understand why you couldn't go up another floor there.
The way where the current bedrooms and the office is right in the middle of the existing building. And underneath of that is where the tavern is. And we have beams and plenty of structure under that for that room. But on either side where we would have the potential, we did look at this pretty extensively, where we could have added another story on either side to match up with the existing second story. There's no structure, they're clear spans in both of those rooms, so there are no, no post. We would have to do that. It would be pretty extensive, and the foundations also would probably have to be redone because it's not set up to, support them. I mean, anything can be done, but it's.
What about over the kitchen? The kitchen is all new structure there. A little bit familiar with the construction of it because I work there. So when they put the block and concrete in, I know how wide the grade beams were and stuff like that. So that whole back area, right now, I'm looking at it on Google Earth. Looks like you had a bunch of mechanicals up there for.
Yeah, we have a lot of all of our equipment. Is
But I
on
mean,
the
that could be maybe relocated rather than take away. So the other problem that I'm seeing with this is everybody screams about parking. I understand it's for people that don't necessarily drive here, but we're losing 8 parking spaces in a town that's missing 600. So I mean, every little bit counts. That was my first glaring thought, was we're losing 6 parking spaces. I don't know if there's a way to perhaps move the building up higher to put parking underneath it, which is not necessarily safe. It's it's kind of, so if there's anything that you can use the existing structures for, I think it'd be more.
Yeah, I think that because the back area is on a slab, the kitchen area is on a slab, and I don't think, I don't have the satellite image here, and it's not shown on the site plan. There isn't the amount of room, I think, that you're taking naturally as the other rooms out there now, that it's really kind of a traffic jam right back there. I don't think we would really be able to get what you're talking about in that.
Yeah, why don't we have Mr. Kramer sworn in to testify regarding that issue as well?
You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give should be the truth?
Yes.
Your name and address?
Jay Kramer, 1917.
Mr. Kramer, the owner of the property is JC Beach Haven Restaurant LLC. The ownership structure of that was submitted with the application. It's rather complex, but do you have authority to speak on behalf of the applicant?
Yes, I'm the managing member of the, yes, I'm the managing member of the LLC.
Okay, if you just, it's up to you if you want to speak generally about it, the application first, or if you want to address the question about the location of the housing.
I'll cover both of them, I hope. Seasonal housing is a huge problem here in Beach Haven, as most of you know. Last year we had those in season 2017, 3 or 4 weeks late because we couldn't get staff in there, and we couldn't get staff because we didn't have housing.
No one can hear.
Speak
Just get real close to the microphone. Kiss it.
Scream at them.
All right, I'll do my best. The seasonal housing is a huge problem here. With our restaurants, we employ 35 to 40 staff during the winter months. In the summer, we have 135 to 140 staff. On any given day, we have generally about 70 people working in the restaurant. We have come to, just as our predecessors, Buckaroo, to get a lot of people from offshore. The Buckaroos family owned the restaurant for about 50 years, starting in 1947. They had rooms above the restaurant that were used for summer help. They used to get kids from Ireland, and Mrs. Buckaroo told me once, do the same thing. You have them there, they're captive. You're gonna come to work when you need them. We started doing the same thing. We have 6 rooms up over the restaurant. They're the simple, plain bedrooms with a bathroom. They're about 10 by 12 each. Facilities. We have the 6 that we have had in there since I've had the place, which is now my 27th year. We have 1 car out of those 6 rooms. It's generated. All the other people that use those generally come from overseas and they don't have a vehicle. We use civil agencies to get people from overseas to work for us in the J1 program and the H2B. And we're required to provide housing for these people, which is both a blessing and a curse. The curse is that you can't afford it anymore. We've rented houses in town and they're more and more difficult to fill all the time. Blessing is that you have them captive. And they're generally really good workers, but we have the obligation to provide housing. We have looked at how we could modify the existing Buckaroo's building, and it would be cost prohibitive for several reasons. One, the actual cost of construction, if you go over either the patio dining room on the south side or the captain's room on the north side, or to go over the main building, the 3rd floor, too much foundation work, structural work, and we would have to close the restaurant for 4 to 6 months to accomplish it. The cost involved simply won't work. Looking at the building we've come up with, 4 bedrooms, they're all simple. The individual access, each other own bathroom, with no cooking facilities of any kind. We expect 12 people in these 4 rooms to be very dependent on chefs or well, line cooks or whatever, how we allocate them and what the mixes, men and women. I'll also note that if you look at the parking requirements that Mr. Rogowski testified to, the calculations he shows a need for 7 parking spaces related to these 6 plus 4, 10 rooms. Those 10 rooms don't generate parking requirements. We've worked hard to provide the parking we could on the site. We have parking on 2nd Street, parking on Center Street. We relined Bay Avenue at our own cost with county approval to pick up extra spaces on Bay Avenue and Station 17. We've gone as far as we could, and then some to provide a lot of parking. But if we can't get seasonal help, we're not going to be able to continue to operate the business as we have. It's just a terrible, terrible problem. And with the requirement that the government has, so we have to provide the housing. We've looked at housing in the mainland. That then gets involved in transportation issues. People who've been working different times for shifts. The best solution really is to put them right on the site, and we lose some parking, but we're not increasing parking demand with these 4 bedrooms. One thing I want to mention, Mr. Rogowski mentioned that It's behind us on the north side is 5 feet, it's actually 8 feet. We measured it this afternoon. And the evergreens that are on the other side of that fence go up to 14 feet. After Jim Raven talked to several neighbors who talked to us today, about increasing the buffer on our north side from 5 feet to 10. We agreed to do that, and we have to do some additional buffering in there. We're happy to do so. We have tried, as long as I've been in that business, to work with the neighbors, to cooperate with them. And we've never had any real problems with any of them. We try to be a good neighbor. And if you want to see what a buffer looks like, just go on Second Street and look at the buffer we built. The key station on 17 lanes, the double row of cyclists with a fence. It's a wall for what people in town want to be doing with other things.
Are there questions from the board for Mr. Kramer?
As a fellow business owner, I've been fortunate enough to be involved in 2 workshops that we had at the council. And without a doubt, the number one, hands down, biggest problem businesses are going to have in this town is having housing for employees. I have 2 restaurants, and one of my restaurants, I couldn't do breakfast this year because I didn't have enough employees that can make it over to Manahawkin, or the cost to hire them because of the travel was prohibitive. So I didn't do breakfast the entire summer. I just couldn't staff it. If I had better housing or more housing, I do have some, not nearly enough. If we have to give up, I know parking is at a premium, but if businesses can't run, we can't staff our businesses, you can have all the parking spots you want, because there's going to be no reason to come into town. I think that giving up something like this, what we gain as a D variance, you have to show what's the advantage. The advantage is it provides lifeblood to our businesses. And I don't want to put words in council's mouth, Jamie, but I believe that they're re-looking at the ordinance. You know, when everybody would pile into the garages in the back, we got to look at that in the summer to see that may be viable to keep us alive. This is a more formal way of doing it.
One point I would also, I didn't make, is that our rooms are for our employees. We do not make these rooms available to the public. So we'll be basically housing 20 people, maybe 24 in the summer, who are working in the restaurant and are there. And we need them all.
And I'm guessing they're not going to be generating vehicles either.
No, we have one vehicle out of 6 bedrooms right now, and that's what we've had in my memory since I've had the place for 27 years.
Just a real quick question. I just want to get some clarity on the number of people that you have in the space that you have now and the space that you're going to be building or proposing. And I understand you have 6 rooms and then you're proposing another 4 rooms. Does that mean like 24 people?
Between 20 and 24. The 6 that we have existing right now are smaller rooms. We've got only 2 people per room.
Right.
So it's 12 in the Buckley building itself.
Right.
The new building, the rooms are a little bit larger, and we can get 12 in those 4 rooms.
Right. Now, since there's only so much physical space that you have in that area, you really can't build it out any more than what it is now. And what I thought, and I don't know if it's possible, if ordinances, I'm sure there's something against what I'm going to say, but if you look at directly across the street next to How to Live, there's a couple of vacant, empty buildings in the area. If there's any way that the business owners can maybe get together with council and figure it out, that these particular buildings could be used in some way to house basic people that we need to support the businesses. Now, again, I don't know if it's possible legally, maybe there could be some maneuvering there, but that may be a way to get the people in here and keep them here. So we wouldn't have to bring them in from Manahawkin or whatever, and we would satisfy the government requirements to get some offshore people here to support the businesses.
But it's a great idea to have the business community work with the borough and find places to put housing for seasonal workers. Buildings that you're talking about, last time I looked, they were for sale for over $1 million. So by the time you buy them, you put something up, it doesn't make any economic sense for someone in the industry. And our need is now. I already testified that this past summer, we opened one restaurant almost a month late because we didn't have housing for staff, and without housing, and you can't bring them in. It's a catch-22 kind of thing. We're chasing our tail. Right now, we have applications in that we think will get us between 10 and 12 seasonal people from Slavic countries and from Central America. But we have to demonstrate that we have housing. And we're at a point now where if we can get this approved, we can get construction started, we have a builder lined up, and we get it done by Memorial Day, so we can house 20 people, and that makes a difference between us having a viable restaurant for this summer and going forward. The other point I would also mention is that we have always worked with the borough trying to make this place as good as it can be. When we did the redevelopment plan and got 117 built, and the borough wanted us to put the brick sidewalks down, and new curbing and so forth. We said, that's great. Looks great in 117, but we've got to upgrade bucklers too, so we can continue it all the way down. We spent an extra $60,000 to accomplish that. We operate the restaurants at a lower occupancy than we're committed by a significant number. We're not going to give up the occupancy because it's part of our banking approvals and so forth, but we do operate at almost 200 seats lower than we're allowed to. We think it makes sense. We're trying to run the best possible restaurant we can, and we stay open year round, serve the whole community. A lot of other places close down. We're open every day of the year except Christmas.
Jay, where are I said, you're removing the bike racks, where are they going?
In some of the room that will save off where the non-conforming parking spaces in the parking lot. We have bike racks available along Bay Avenue that haven't been used, so we'll get the rest of them to use. And we think we can put some more on the north side over on Second Street, but it's a planner outside that parking lot. So we'll accommodate bicycles, believe me.
Yeah, we need that. And the other question, what about a washer and dryer for these people?
We have that in the Buckley's built in Buckley's.
So everybody does their laundry.
They do their own laundry.
If I could comment on Joe. Joe had mentioned that the business community get together and get some of those buildings on Bay Avenue. Well, in the current complexion of our council, we've had proposals where multi-use businesses on the bottom and apartments on top, and they've been shut down. Can you imagine going between this current council and saying, oh, we don't want to make them businesses, they're all going to be houses? That had no chance to fly with the current complexion. I wouldn't even be laughing.
Any questions? Anybody else have any concerns? Okay, can I have a motion to open it to the public?
I so move.
Okay, second?
Second time.
Hi, I'm not sure your name, but iPad number 5.
Hi, this is Tammy Schneider.
Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give should be the truth?
I do. Hi, I own 209 Center Street, 207 Center Street, and 204 Second Street. And I also have some questions for Karen Meyer, who owns the Magnolia House, which is adjacent to the parking lot. And Karen's question, she had to leave. She had an obligation for one of her kids. She wants to know how many feet are going to be between that structure and her fence on the east side.
5 feet. 5 feet.
5 feet again, but it'll be 10 feet on the north side.
Yes, originally the plan showed 5 feet off of the north. We're proposing to increase that to 10 and 5 feet off, 5 feet to the east, adjacent to the Magnolia House.
You won't give Karen 10 feet also?
Well, the concern with respect to the north was really windows on that side. There's no windows on the side of the building adjacent to the Magnolia House.
Okay, that was her second question. You'll guarantee there's no windows?
Yes, there's no windows proposed on the Magnolia House side.
And then this is both of our questions. So is this zone commercial, residential, or a hybrid? And if it is residential, does this have to be approved by the Historic Society? Because the drawings don't appear, like, we all have to jump through so many hoops and everything to meet the regulations of the Historic Society. Is this structure going to meet the integrity that the Historic Society requires?
It's located entirely within the business district. Part of it is also in the bed and breakfast overlay zone, but the business district runs basically all along Center Street in that area.
So if it's commercial, but you can use it as residential, even though it's business.
The within this district, I believe, Mr. Brzezowski, uses permitted in the RCB zone are also permitted in the business district, correct?
Yeah.
Because we can't even mean anything without approval, but you can build a structure without any kind of approval from the Historic District.
We don't believe it's required.
And I asked this question, this was another question we had, and I only asked this because our one property, 207, was a boarding house prior to us buying it, so we lived next to them. What kind of supervision is there going to be for the people, for the people living there? Because there were issues, and it's a group of people, and a group of people congregate, and it's loud. And because most of them are from Europe, and I don't know where all these people will be from, when they make their phone calls, they tend to be outside at like 5 a.m., 6 a.m. So Karen wants to know, like, from a noise level, is there going to be any kind of, regulations of what they can do, where they can congregate?
Well, to begin with, these are adults. They're all employees. And if they do misbehave, then they violate their contract and will get sent back home.
But it's not really, they're not really misbehaving.
Can I finish, please? We have had rooms over the restaurant for, as I said, for 27 years, and we have never had a problem with animal houses or anything else. The supervision is provided by our own staff. We have about 10 people on our management staff. So if there are issues, they get taken care of quickly and immediately.
I didn't mean to insinuate that they were doing anything wrong. It's just, it's a group of people, and if they congregate anywhere, there is a noise level associated with that. And I realize that they're adults, but it 5 feet from a property line, and just because we experienced it with the 207 house being close to 209, there is a disturbance level there. And it's not, I don't think they're breaking any laws, but you make a phone call home and there's 3 people out there talking, there is a concern there as because Karen's house is so close to the line, to the border.
Can I offer something? So the building itself is 5 feet off the east property line, but as Mr. Raven stated, there's no windows on the east side of this building. Then on the south side of the building, we've got 14 foot of additional building before we get to the deck area that's a 4 foot wide entry deck. So the east property is screened by a 14 by 24 foot wide portion of building where there's no outdoor living on that raised floor area. The deck, the only outdoor area is a 4 foot wide deck that provides entry to the 4 units, and that 4 foot wide entry level deck is, an additional, at a minimum 14 feet west of the property line. So it's a total of 19 feet from the property line before we get to an open deck area.
Okay. And then the only other question I had was, it's, like everybody else on Center Street, it's parking. The loss of more parking spots. We all have our driveways blocked. We all get screamed at when we go out and ask people to move their car because they're blocking our driveways. By the restaurant losing seven parking spots, I mean, it's only going to contribute to that. And I understand your problem. I truly do. My other question was, did you look into purchasing any of the existing houses that were for sale? Because I know on 2nd Street, one of the houses was just purchased by another restaurant group to house their employees. The house directly across from the empty lot where the house they tore down on 3rd Street, or I mean on 2nd Street, the house that they tore down. One of the groups bought an existing house to put their employees in.
The market has changed in this town in the last 3 or 4 years. And you can't find a property that you can buy for less than $1 million. Once you find it, is it big enough for even a parking lot? You need 60 foot in width. You need to figure out the cost of demolishing whatever house is on it. It just cost prohibitive. And we're in a business where we serve the public. We make the bulk of our money over about a 12-week period. In our case, we've elected to stay open for 52 weeks of the year to serve the community. Yes, in the summer, there are parking issues. I've lived here my entire life, and I know all about parking issues. 40 weeks of the year, we all can enjoy a great place where parking and traffic aren't much of an issue. And for 10 or 12 weeks, it is. And we do our best. And that's all I can say.
Just one last question. For the AC units, are they split pack units?
I couldn't hear your question.
Are the AC unit, are they split pack units where each room has an they do the heating and the cooling, they each have their own condensing unit?
Yeah.
And you said they'll be on the north side?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Jeffrey Roman.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, raise your right hand, sir. You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give should be the truth.
Yes. Jeff Roman, 220 2nd Street. And my wife is sitting in the corner. If she says anything, we should swear her in too.
Okay. Thank you.
Can you pull up the site plan, please? Is it possible to pull that up on the screen? I'm sorry, I don't see.
Sorry, just a minute, she's trying.
Thank you. Yeah, it's hard on Zoom to see what's going on. Thank you. Our property is the one that's going to be, could you just make that a little louder? Excuse me, a little larger?
I wish I could.
That's okay. If you look towards the middle section of the page where you see the 90.00, that would be the back of our lot of 220 2nd Street. So our backyard would probably be, that would be, along with my neighbors, the one that has the greatest impact. And so that's why I'm on the call. today. As it was originally 5 feet setback, and it sounds like now it would be 10 feet. And it would take up the entirety of our entire backyard, the length of it. Is it possible to pull up the architect plans? I know they were not on the website initially, the land use board. Can you pull that up? Okay, and if not, we'll move on.
I don't think we have those.
You don't have them on the public website. Okay. That's okay. We'll keep going. You could take this down and I'll just speak about it. I really don't have a say if the land use board approves or denies the building request. My personal feeling is that Beach Haven is just a special place, and we're all on this call because we care about the town and respect one another. I put our faith in the elected officials to decide whether to approve it or not. I'm just simply asking one big amendment from the land use board in Jay. Before the homes on either side of us were bought and developed, and also the lot on Station 117, our lot in the middle was kind of remote in a way. It was just the trees. And so it changed quite a lot over the last 7 years or so, for the good. But I think our house is probably arguably one of the busiest sections in all of LBI. Our backyard is a really nice, quiet place that we do spend a lot of family time. And the height of the proposed housing is 28 feet. So we say 1 story, but it's 5 feet taller than Buckaloo's now. It's quite high. I mean, it would literally, feel like towering over our backyard. A lot of houses have backyards, probably where a lot of you all live, that back up to another home. So you have a natural separation. With this being 28 feet high and 5 feet or potentially 10 feet off, it's going to be pretty imposing in the in our backyard. And so if this is approved, the lack of spacing, being at this close for our privacy, and also those in the buildings, why not just eliminate those windows that are only in the bathrooms in the rear of the building? All units do have windows in the front for natural light, and the rear windows that are simply for the bathrooms are not required by a building code or I mean, it's not historic at this point. But if light is really required, how come let's a skylight or a window really high up where no one could see in or out? I mean, this is literally over our backyard. Again, with 4 windows, 12 people, like, it was hard hearing coming from overseas. It's just our concern for our families' privacy. And I don't think people want us into the bathrooms anyway. I wouldn't. So that's our main comment. If that could be worked out, that would be wonderful. And in addition, the second request would be a natural planting buffer of tall trees to not only soften the visual of the proposed building. I know it was mentioned a few times, it's only 1 story, but it's really as high as 2. It's 28 feet tall. It's higher than Buckaloo's. So the proposed building has storage running the length and width of the apartments above, kind of like a big parking garage. And there will probably be utilization noise coming with storage of restaurant equipment naturally. So if there is noise that comes from this, I appreciate moving that back 10 feet and putting up some plantings to help buffer the noise would be really.
It's a roof.
Right. Thank you.
I just have one more comment. I'm sorry. It was a little.
We need to wrap it up. Yeah, I really should only be allowed to talk for 3 minutes so other people can talk. wrap it up, please.
I have nothing more to say. And
Okay, thank you.
time and I'm being cut short.
Thank you for your comments.
We have John Wachter.
Right. All right, can you hear me?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
John.
Swear me in.
Raise your right hand.
Raise your hand.
You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give should be the truth.
I do.
Walker,
Good
name
evening.
and address.
Good evening, everyone. I wish I could be there. I can't, but
We need your name and address, John.
I'm sorry.
Name and address.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I have trouble hearing. It's not been the best audio. 219 2nd Street.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And good evening, everyone. I can relate to all of the issues that we're seeing here, and I live in the very busy, probably one of the busiest, as my neighbor said, parts of town. I guess the question to the land use board is eliminating parking the right thing to do to resolve our staffing issues in Beach Haven? That's one to really think about in moving forward with other businesses and so forth, that they may just want to do the same thing, and this may just compound for us. I know staffing is a major issue. We've dealt with it when I was the director of operations for Murphy's, and we did everything. We purchased 3 different properties, moved on, and got bigger and bigger. But I just don't know. Parking is the greatest concern that has come up in many of our surveys, and I just don't know that eliminating parking is the right thing to do. But that's something for you to consider, and consider it for the long term. The other issue is, and I'll really direct this to Jay, is deliveries. 2nd Street is already overburdened. Jay, please tell me you're not going to take deliveries on 2nd Street.
We have a loading zone on 2nd Street, but we rarely use it. We've pretty much consolidated most of our deliveries to come in off Center Street. And we have two actual loading zones on Center Street, because our parking lot functions as a loading zone in the mornings when it's not being parked in, and we get both of our deliveries are all in by noon time. So for practical purposes, we do have 3 loading zones, and I would say probably 90% of all of our stuff comes in off Center Street, John. We're not going to change the way we do it.
Yeah, that is important. We're dealing with safety issues on 2nd Street. I mean, they're trying to resolve some of them now. I give the council a lot of credit because they are addressing it, but to add anything more to this narrow street would be just ridiculous. It's already ridiculous. So
we're not increasing the intensity of our usage at all.
Well, that's really important, because again, we already have a problem. We don't want to make it any bigger. So that's really all I have to say is we really need to just consider the parking. There needs to be a resolve to staffing. I don't know if it may be businesses cooperatively working together and doing something off the island with transportation, or the council has been aware of it, but let's hope that something can come up, because you can't function unless you have enough help to do it. So thank you for hearing me, and good night, good luck.
Thank you, John. That's it for public comment. Could I have a motion to close the public comment?
Motion to close. Second.
Hello?
Hello,
Oh, Bill, did you have a comment?
I've been patiently waiting.
Oh,
Were your hands not raised? You didn't see your
I-
hand.
I raised my hand 3 times, and every time you raise it, it seems to go down by itself.
You should open it again.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
Can I have a motion to reopen to the public?
I so move.
Second.
Second.
Okay, Bill, go ahead.
Mr. Burris, raise your right hand, please. You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give should be the truth
I do.
and your address.
William Burris, 100 North West Avenue, Beach Haven, New Jersey. I think it's a well-known fact that Beach Haven has determined employee housing does not require parking. And that the case that I'm thinking about most is the building on the corner used to be the Colony Theater upstairs. And we approved significant employee housing without parking. And we've echoed that decision other times since then. But we've never discussed a concept where we're going to reduce parking to provide employee housing. And 8 spaces is a lot of parking to deal with. And I've got a couple problems with it because we've spent a lot of time in the last 3-4 months with all this problem at 2nd Street. We're taking parking out so that we have loading places, for places that have just expanded, properties that were retail uses and suddenly became restaurant uses. And to look at this area, and this is one of the contributors to that circumstance, to just turn around and say, it's okay to get rid of 8 parking spaces, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I do, just a little tongue in cheek, I do appreciate that Jay is open year round. I really do. I think that's important for the community. At the same time, I don't like the fact that he changed the chicken pot pie recipe. But other than that, thank you, everybody, for listening to me.
Thank you, Bill.
Motion to close.
Second.
Second.
Go ahead.
Hi, if I could just address a couple of those comments. With respect to the parking, and Mr. Kramer touched on this a little bit, I think it's important to note that the commercial aspect of these businesses at Station 117 and Buckaloo's, the 2 commercial restaurants require 26 parking spaces. The additional 7 spaces are triggered by the employee housing. So, as Mr. Burris just noted, apparently the borough doesn't have a history of always requiring parking for employee housing, but we included it with our calculation, which requires 33 spaces. If you discount that for a moment, we're required to have 26. And with the elimination of the parking spaces that we're proposing here, we're providing 24. So I understand that Mr. Brzezowski calculated those spaces in the calculation, but Mr. Kramer testified that only 1 car is utilized for the 6 spaces, the 6 rooms above Buckaloo's. Other than that, there's going to be no other cars. So we're really looking at 26 spaces that we would be required with the commercial space, and we're providing 24. So it's a trade-off that really is, we believe, warranted in this situation when you have a restaurant like Buckaloo's that's been here for so long and employee housing is such an issue. We feel that by providing this, sure, we're losing 8 spaces. Nobody wants to do that, but as Mr. Kramer noted, there really just wasn't any other place to do it on the property. So that's the reason that they decided to put it there. Now, with respect to the neighbors, we're willing to move that back so it has a 10-foot buffer from the north side. Mr. Kramer stated that he'd be willing to put a planted buffer there. I've discussed this with Mr. Kramer. I think the height of the structure, 28 feet, is really just a result of the pitched roof, and it's going to be 10 feet off the property line. So if you had a residence there, which I know it's not a residential lot, but, residents would be able to go up much taller than 28 and would only need an 8-foot setback. So you have taller structures than that are closer to the property line throughout Beach Haven. So it's not something that's not seen throughout town. So the applicant really did everything that they could here to try to make this work, address this need. It's challenging. They're fortunate enough to have any space to provide any employee housing. Most businesses don't even have this option. And this was the best plan that they could come up with. And Mr. Brzezowski testified with respect to all the variances. We feel that we've met the burden. So we would request that the application be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Anybody have any questions?
I have one last question. Is it possible to change the pitch of the roof to cut off a couple feet, make it more flat instead of pointy? Maybe that would help some of the neighbors not think it's so huge behind them.
We could swoosh the pitch, but it's not as attractive as a building, but it's not, I mean, if 2 feet off of it makes a difference.
Maybe it would, I
Give
don't
up
know.
A little bit of the aesthetics of it and.
I don't know,
It's
maybe.
off the street far enough, it
What-
doesn't.
What was the advantage of the storage underneath? If you lowered the building, so it wouldn't be as high, I mean, it could be 4 or 5 feet off the ground, but it wouldn't be as high that the neighbors worried about the windows. I don't know anywhere in Beach Haven where somebody's not gonna look down in the backyard. I mean, that's just a fact of life here. And, there's just no privacy. That's part of life here. But we haven't really discussed the storage issue.
It's just dry storage. You know, you can see the access doors on the west side.
Right.
And because of flood, we have to be up so far anyway.
Is that what it is?
It would just be a shame to. for
Well,
two
how
people-
far do you have to be up?
For flood.
It's 8, so you can be at 9. Where the ground at about 4 feet, so you find another 4 feet.
Say that
So
again?
You really have to be up 4 feet. Is that right?
Is it 4 feet to the underside of the structure? Because I think the top floor would end up being 5. I can verify that for you.
I know everybody needs storage, but I'm just thinking if you brought the building down 4 feet, I mean, you can have doors that swing over the concrete base and still put plenty of storage in.
Napkins and stuff like that. It'd be hard for
Bikes
people.
and, I mean, you can put bikes and, I know people
There's
do
more
that now.
storage for the restaurant.
Even 6 feet, Bonnie. It's now 9, correct? On the plan, so 6 feet, most people could walk in there. Tall guys would have to bend over.
My point is, if you
That
brought
would
it
be 3
down
feet.
and moved it back, the neighbor in the back's not upset about people looking at them. And we don't lose parking space.
I think you're still gonna have that same, you're still gonna have the same issue unless we did no windows on that side, right? So no matter if we're here or here, we still
Yeah.
have windows on the back, and it would really be not great to only have windows on one side. of the
No,
building.
I would never.
But the buffer may grow eventually, right? If you put trees back there, they'll grow up eventually.
Seriously, I don't want to put up anything that would be terrible looking from the other side or.
Yeah, I just think it might be the height. The one gentleman anyway was like,
If
this
there was a
be,
regular house, the house
it'd
would
be
go
bigger, right?
5
but-
feet, and it'd be higher anyway.
And it would be a wall. It
I mean,
wouldn't be-
yeah,
it would be a
exactly.
Straight wall.
This is much less intrusive, yeah.
My thought was to take the center out and make those 2 parking spaces underneath them. In all seriousness, it can be very easily done. You got a 22-foot width between the parking areas. Average parking space is 9 feet. You'd still have enough room. You'd have storage on either side, and then you wouldn't lose the.
Yeah, but how do you
parking.
back out?
Straight
Yeah,
out,
backing out.
straight out.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
With other people parked there?
So if this was divided in half, you could actually pull two cars nose in and then back straight out. Or, you know, it's just a thought. And then this way you wouldn't be a deficit of two parking spaces.
I'm not sure, but are you allowed to have someone back all the way out of the parking lot? I didn't think you're allowed
Well, I
to
would
sit.
assume that those spaces are there used by employees. Employees would be on shift, so they wouldn't just be
Or
somebody.
you have to
constantly
designate
going
them
in and
to.
out. You could designate those as additional, I mean, some of the employees. There's 100 and something employees. I'm
Yeah.
sure two of them would love to have a parking space. And they could be designated to employee parking spaces. And still not.
That would be my only concern, Jake.
Well,
in all
that just
seriousness.
changes our,
Yeah.
it just makes for a more expensive building once we.
So, I mean, you have fire code says double 5/8 sheet rock underneath the standard house. You know,
I don't know what it's going to be considered for multi-family
But
use.
if it's open, I mean, you can leave it, actually leave it open on the other side, back side as well. You wouldn't have to close it off, so it wouldn't be, or it might be better. It's not that much risk.
No, I don't know about that. I'm not wild about the backing all the way out, but even if it isn't a place, I don't know.
Somebody's got to back all the way out because the parking spaces that are up against it,
Yeah.
if you turn and park in, you got to back out.
You have to back straight, there's enough room to back straight out and then do the turn. If you were coming out on one side of those two spaces, I don't think you can.
Why don't you have them back?
Yeah, just back in.
Have them back in. I think another aspect of that is parking lots in town, in the summer, we've got visitors. They're walking in that parking lot with little kids, they run between cars, they don't see them, if someone's backing out of one of those spaces, we're putting some, people's lives in danger. I just think for one or two spaces, it's not working. We've done everything we can to make it work, and we'll 45 feet, we'll put a buffer on the north side, and the 4 windows on the north side to provide light and air into those 4 bedrooms. I can appreciate what the neighbor's saying, but I don't see where that's going to be intrusive. He's got a buffer on his side, we're adding one on our side. You know, the idea of having, following your suggestion more, I appreciate it. I just don't think it's the right one.
What about the pitch or lowering the building 2 or 3 feet? Would that help anybody? Instead of 9 foot and
Buildings in this town, we don't need another one, and even though this is, it's employee housing, we still want to have a building that looks nice. I mean,
Yeah.
We didn't have Laura designed station 117. She designed 300 houses on this island. And she did a building that looks nice, that is pleasing to the eye.
yeah. Well, I don't think lowering it 3 feet makes it look any different. That, the pitch maybe, but just lower, I mean, 6 feet is still tall enough for you to get a lot of storage in there, I think, instead of 9.
Well, the only thing you can say about that is by lowering it 2 or 3 feet, is the gain in the aesthetics for the back, this backyard, where we already have an 8-foot fence. No, it's no fence to the neighbor's fence. It's an 8-foot high fence with trees that are already up to
Already there.
13, 14 feet. Is by lowering that 2 to 3 feet and us giving up extremely valuable space in a time that it's so expensive to build right now. It's, I don't know, I always I weigh that, and to me, we'd be giving up a lot more than what the neighbor would gain. The 2 neighbors would gain by dropping it 2 feet. We would lose a lot more. Just a little.
Well, it costs more to build up too. It costs more to build up.
This
Yeah, storage area. It can never be more bedrooms.
No,
No.
it's below flood.
It's below
Yes,
flood.
everybody in Beach Haven has a garage that has a bathroom.
This one.
Any other comments?
Well, the only thing, if I'm doing a resolution on this gets approved, I need to know what kind of buffer. Mr. Kramer agreed to buffer.
Mr. Kramer, do you want to elaborate on the buffering that you would propose in that area to the north?
We'll put a single line of cypress trees down the north side. We're not gonna come all the way up against the building because that creates maintenance issues and so forth, but there's an 8-foot fence there now. Neighbor has trees that are 14 feet high. We're gonna add a buffer.
How are these trees going to survive? They're not going to get any sun from the neighbor's side. They're not going to get any sun from the building side.
Maybe
I
we can
mean,
ask the neighbor to take part of his fence down.
but I'm just saying, I have a problem with moving the building 10 feet and losing a parking space. I think the parking is more important. And if you leave it at 5, I mean, I don't think it's that intrusive. I don't know how anybody else feels about it, but I mean.
If you went back to 5 feet, how many spots would you do?
We're gonna get
One more.
We get 2 on either
One
side.
on either side.
It's as per the plan. So you look at the plan,
Oh, yeah.
the plan shows it at 5 feet. And so we're back up to 25 parking spaces.
So then you're only one short if you take away.
Excuse me, one point. We could designate that one space for compact cars. That space.
It's narrow, it's
It's
not.
narrow, it's 7 feet wide.
Motorcycle parking.
Cart only.
Designate that for parking, for a compact car.
Golf carts.
Golf carts, golf cart only.
So we would have those 2 spaces.
That's not a bad idea, Bonnie. That's not a bad
I mean, I
idea.
don't think we
We're happy
need
to
the
do
10
that.
feet.
Yeah.
So if you allow that, on the east side, the last spot before the building, which I'm not including in the parking count, if you include that as a compact
Quasi
space,
space,
then we're up to 26.
which is what's needed, and you've lost theoretically no spots.
Right, the 26 is what's required for the commercial portion of the property. And the only, the 7 spaces we're short are the 7 that's
Right.
required by the residential.
Right.
Would you still be providing tree buffer even if you only went back 5 feet?
It's not gonna grow in the
Couldn't
shade.
be.
It's gonna be in the
There's
shade.
no space for it. right?
Yeah, you'll never get sunlight.
They have something there now.
Well,
We
the
have something.
people do, the neighbors do.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Yeah, that's.
We planted shrubs there when we had the tent in order to give it a more attractive yard. Just like we planted the trees between the parking lot and the existing buffer driveway. We weren't required to put those trees in. We did those well, just to increase the attractiveness of the overall property. So we've done our best in putting something in that pipe, which they're not gonna grow. But we'll do either one, whichever you prefer.
So. If we make a motion, we go back to the original drawing, 5 feet, bring the spaces back up to 26, albeit one quasi compact. Right? I don't think the house is intrusive at all. If it was a regular house behind a guy, windows would be facing each other.
They're not large windows.
Right.
I don't even know why you didn't put windows on that end unit on the east. Just for cross ventilation.
Gotta put a bed somewhere.
Huh?
Gotta put a bed somewhere.
That's true.
Well, I know.
No, but to Jim's point, that sealed unit creates another 14 feet of buffer, so now you got that plus 5, you're at 19 feet.
That's true.
I agree. I think 10-foot setback is being overly generous.
right.
Sounds like a
Can I make a motion?
Yes, you may make a motion.
Can I make a motion to approve the application, except that we go to 5 feet, which is in the original design, and we go to 26 spots, and the one is that quasi small pen.
And all the other discussions regarding the buildings, so they remain the same
Everything remains the same
as per the plan.
as per plan.
What about my fire truck?
Secretary. I was gonna say that, but I'm afraid I don't think they have an issue. Secretary.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Jerry.
Okay, let's go to vote. Mr. Meadow,
Yes.
Mr. Fasano. Oh, wait.
Yes.
Oh. Mrs. Eddles,
Yes.
Mr. Muha,
Yes.
Mrs. Leonard,
Yes.
Mr. Jenna.
Yes.
Application approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's right.
Okay.
See you.
Did all our people on Zoom in, or did they come home?
We needed Steve, didn't we? Because we couldn't hear him.
All right, resolution 2022-14, that's the impervious coverage, the on West Avenue, the elevator,
Yes.
on each side plan.
There's a
Is there
second
a
one for
motion
each
to
aisle.
approve yet? I need a motion to approve
First,
for the elevator.
I'll make a motion to approve. Second. With all the changes.
Mr. Meadow?
All the-
Yeah.
Right, that's all they took out all the favorites. Yes.
Mr. Stevens, can you hear me?
Yeah.
He is.
Unmute,
The sweater.
unmute yourself.
Yes.
Hey.
Mr. Fasano,
Yes.
Mrs. Eddles,
Yes.
Mr. Muha,
Yes.
Mrs. Leonard,
Yes.
Mr. Jenna.
Yes.
Resolution approved.
It is.
All right, the next resolution is 2022-16, Mackin, 409 Wood Avenue. This is the sidewalk, right?
Right,
That was
denied.
denied. Right.
Wait, denied.
Yeah.
We denied it. He had to put a label?
Not the one, not the one we're changing. No. Two in, two in the list. Yeah, she did that too. We did that.
Who voted no on the, oh, it was Joe. The sidewalk waiver last time. We voted no on.
So you should vote on this. This is a vote to accept the resolution approved.
Could I have a motion to approve the resolution?
Make a motion to approve the resolution, Ken.
Second time.
Mr. Meadows,
Yes.
Mr. Stevens,
Yes.
Mrs. Eddles,
Yes.
Mr. Muha,
Yes.
Mrs. Leonard,
Yes.
and Mr. Jenna.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right,
I have one question. The fire chief just got back to me. He believes that the fire lane setback is 18.
is what?
Is in fact 18 feet, not 15.
Designate a fire. Parking lot, so it's probably got to be, I'm just saying at this point, we want to have something there. And 15 is a loading zone for tractor trailer. So at a minimum, we want to have 15. So I think what we approved is appropriate, because you're not really going to designate a fire physically. It's available, it's not going to get the ladder truck thing.
What are we calling it?
It's an open area that's just got clamshell and it can't be used for
Can't be
anything. It's
utilized.
gotta stay open.
Can't be used for parking?
No, can't be anything in. No tables, nothing. It's gotta be open.
Yeah, he just said, I guess he must ask the fire marshal.
Yeah, and I'm sure, having it wider is better, but I think 15 is gonna work.
It'll hopefully
So
suffice.
we've done
everybody.
gravel roads, the houses over in Eagleswood that are 12 feet wide.
Yeah,
So
that's probably about 10 or 12.
Yeah,
wide, isn't it?
15 is more than enough if you're gonna get a regular truck down, if you're even gonna do.
But at least it gives us the nice buffer still.
But I think still, you got 15 foot of clamshell with no tables and nothing, plus the plan buffer. You got 30 feet before you get the 48 seats.
You're trying to do.
I just want to announce, I don't know if everybody knows it or not, Joe Pisano is leaving. It's going on for different interesting challenges.
You know that, Joe?
I
want to know if
You just got fired. He served on this board for 10 years.
Wow.
Have you?
His Rose and Morrison's and Victoria Rose. Did you know you've been on this board for 10 years?
I'd like, that's fun.
You were always very informative, Jenny, I remember, and you will be sort of this.
Yeah.
Good luck to you.
Enjoy your grandkids.
And our other, last but not least, is our land use court lawyer. Bob came on and Steve got sick. And he also, he did more sense because Stu had to refuse this.
Yeah, I've been doing this for 8 or 10 years. I think my first file is actually 2002. It's personal reasons.
Yeah, and he's always been very professional and accurate in dealing with land use court issues. Very organized. Got all your I's and crossed your T's. And I wish you best of luck in the school.
Yes.
I love having you.
Board, I
Wish
want to
you the
stress
best.
that. I will always stress what a wonderful board this is.
Oh.
I'm very proud to be the board attorney. I took over when Stu got sick. I was in both positions, so there were people who really grabbed it. He passed in December 11th last year. I guess at that point, I knew if I didn't do it, that was going to get. So I did tell him 2 months ago, for personal reasons, would be able to continue. But I would stress to higher powers here, what a good board they have, how much that you appreciate.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
We do. We do. Stay in contact.
I'm right across the pond. I'm in Mount Hope. I can afford living there.
All right, can I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Second.
So how did it? Good night, everybody. Good night, Jim.
Good night.
Good night, Jim.
Good night.
Hopefully see you
How
next,
do you think it worked?
other than the beginning.